Yeah, but now the KPIs are actually coming back and like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, despite all that, it's still going to pan out in your guys' favor. We're live, guys. This is week 12 of the 90-day challenge. This is the last one. I'm going to share this link inside Discord. We'll get a few people joining us. As you guys know, been working with Rob and Dennis on a 0 to hero kind of 90-day challenge. Today, we're really going to be focusing on dispositions, how to sell properties, how to work with buyers. We went pretty deep on marketing properties last week, week 11. So we're not going to go and repeat ourselves here. We're really going to talk about working with buyers and what that process is like. We'll do some Q&A, of course. We'll get some questions answered. But before we do that, we're going to do a bit of an update on where we're at in the challenge, some of the unfortunate shit that's happened for you guys, right? I think that's just the truth of the matter, right? Bad things will happen. Good things will also happen. So far, the results have looked like sunshine and rainbows, right? It's been like, oh my God, we spent less than 10 grand and have made oodles and oodles of money. We've got oodles of money in our pipeline. Of course, none of that always materializes. So I'm going to put it actually, before we dive into it, I'll share with you guys, we're still actually running the 50% off the 90-day 0 to hero program. This launches on the 28th of this month of July. The link's down below. You guys can get access to it at half off before it goes live. We've already had a few dozen folks take us up on that, but I'll put that here if you guys want to hop in. All right, let's talk about it. Some bad things happening. What's going
on? I mean, luckily, so we've had a couple deals that we were in contract for and all this stuff, and they looked like they were pretty good to go, right? Unfortunately, on my end, as acquisitions, I messed up, right? So there's a couple deals that I personally didn't ask the right questions before sending them to title. And had I asked the right questions, I would have known, okay, this deal is probably going to be dead, and I'm not going to waste $750 on this, sending it to title and doing a title search and then finding out exactly what I got found out on the call.
So on the same time, dude, like, it's good that we're finding these problems because now we're implementing fixes. Now we're putting in our questionnaire, like, what is the ownership chain? Like, is it just you as an owner, a single owner, or is this like some kind of family owns it? We're going to have to get a bunch of people signed off, and we're probably going to dig deeper on the easement questions because those are some of the other issues, right?
Yeah. So like one of the leads, it was a buy for, we actually changed it. So it was a buy for 21,000 something, right? And we would sell it for like 49,000. It's a pretty good deal, right? Like 20 grand profit, something like that. Well, we come to find out, I should have asked a better question. I should have asked, how did you inherit the property? So his great grandfather gave the property to his grandfather, who gave the property to his father, who gave the property to the son. Everybody else is dead. So now it just became an heirship issue, right? And my fault on not asking the right questions in the upfront, because now I wasted time, title, and all this stuff on that deal. So I ended up renegotiating the deal, and we basically told them, like, hey, look, we could give you $3,000 if we could get everything done. So if I ended up finding all the heirs and all this stuff, cool. If not, no big deal. So that's one deal. Another deal, we were told when we talked to the seller that there was an easement in place. As we went through title, we come to find out the easement was given up like 10 or so years ago. And the only way to get it back into place is if we get, like, I think one side was like 12 signatures. The other side was like 3 signatures, right? Just to get it done. And then the extra title work and all that stuff. So that deal I negotiated down from 16,000 purchase, or 16,500 to like 13,000 purchase.
Yep.
And then we get the news from the attorney saying, hey, it's going to cost an extra 1,200 in title and all this stuff to maybe get the easements. So he's like, you want to proceed? The juice is not worth the squeeze on that deal. It's like a buy for 12 or 13 to sell for 30. So I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze there.
It's two people we're going to have to get to give us the legal easement, and both of them are like trusts.
Right.
So it's going to be like multiple people on 2 different properties. The other side of it, which I think we talked about on the last call, that, it had 2 access ways. The other side is like 9 people, 9 different people we have to get that. So it's like, well, maybe we can make it work on the northeast side of it. But it's still going to take some hunting people down and skip tracing and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just it just becomes an argument of at what point is it worth your guys' time?
Yeah.
I mean, on these landlocked deals, we lock them up very, very cheap, and we typically just put them under contract with a long close, and then go try to find the people. And if you can't, all right, move on. Right? Let's not. You definitely don't want to buy the thing beforehand. And I think, like, with the new information that this property is legitimately landlocked to you and to anyone else, and even to the guy that owns it currently, he doesn't even have an easement. So, I mean, it should be pretty negotiable. These deals we typically get on, pennies on the dollar. I think it's actually one of my favorite value add strategies is just at creating access. Now, this is one of those weird properties, and we covered this on week 11 last week. Those weird properties where 99% of land investors will look at this on a map and say, oh, this has got access, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 county-looking roads that adjoin it on both sides, but they're not county roads.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to have a visual kind of test, I mean, if you look at these roads, they're like podunk dirt roads, middle of nowhere, horrible access, but they look like they're labeled like a county road, and they're not.
Yeah.
So that deal, I mean, may or may not be done. It's just an argument of what can you guys get it for where it makes sense. I mean, you guys think it's worth 30, right, with access? So, yeah. I mean, I'd give the guy a $2,500 offer, $5,000 offer maybe, and then just have someone go and skip trace and call those folks. I mean, luckily we've got 2 roads, so it's like one is 9 and the other is 3, right?
2. And then there's just multiple owners.
Right? And if 2 fails, well, okay, we could go try to attack the 9. So you've got you've got decent odds of piecing that together. And
then that other one that, is going to take some serious hunting down people, it says sell for 60. So we're talking about giving them 3. If we are into it for 5, as far as like back end work.
So why are you guys complaining again? So why are you guys complaining again?
Because just entrepreneur problems. Nothing big.
It's the airship. So like for that one, my fault totally. I should have found out where he inherited the property. When he told me, he's like, I inherited from my dad or whatever. I was like, okay, cool. But then in talking, I was like, dude, he inherited from his great grandfather. So the succession is like crazy. And, and then he's like, oh yeah, my sister and my brother, they're both dead. So I can't even find out. So it just creates this whole waterfall.
How many people, how many documents would you need to get signed? Do you know?
It could be anywhere from
what I'm seeing, I think it's probably like going to be 2 to 4.
Okay.
If both of those siblings are dead, then it might be a couple kids, I think.
You should talk to Candace Fuller in the group. Her first deal, she just closed on it to buy for 10. She thinks it's worth 50. I think it's probably worth a little north of 50. In North Carolina, same thing. She had to get like 6 heirs to sign off on documents, and she just hunted them down. I mean, I think potentially this deal has better spread. Did the guy commit to a $3,000 offer? Is he cool with it?
He was cool with it.
Come on. That's
easy.
Yeah.
What we both were talking about,
the call too,
this might just be a longer term thing. So, if we have hotter deals that can move faster, we'll focus on those. And this one will just, work through. And then actually, it's not all bad. We did get another lead come in today that you're probably sending a contract out for, right?
Yeah.
It's got needed access in that same county. And we just got another lead right before you called. Or we started the call. So,
walk me through with the 2 contracts that have fallen through, the new contract that you guys are sending out. How many contracts are you at, plus or minus? What's the pipeline profit?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's nine contracts total.
Yeah.
And then deals funding equals.
Those 2 new one, or that new one we haven't comped completely yet. So
yeah, I'm just adding that in right now. Estimated.
Yeah. What are you saying? 250 in net profit potentially? Or is that?
Yeah. Might be a little bit more.
But $200,000 in net profit. We've spent under 10 still, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Not too shabby.
No,
So-
definitely still all good.
290. It's actually 297, but I didn't take out those two deals.
Oh,
So
yeah.
probably 250 once I take out those two deals.
Okay. Cool.
So, and there's going to be bumps in the road. I feel like maybe two might not close. Two other ones might not close. One of them actually was funny. It was the call I actually did on our other live that we did on here. That same seller, I called her today, and she had signed another PA with another company. So we had offered 32. She signed a PA for 40 today.
Yep.
And I was like, just so you know, I mean, we're under contract. So, and she's like, well, I think it's sexist that you signed the contract because I'm a woman. I said, no. I said, we send blind offers. I don't care what you are, man, woman, doesn't matter to me. I don't know who owns the property. We're sending blind offers to the land, not you. So whatever. So I ended up turning the call around. I recorded that call too. We're still going to go out for lunch no matter what happens. And,
wait, this is that lady?
Yes, that lady.
Okay.
Yeah.
We actually did that call live on the previous video, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
That lady spun on you?
Spun.
Yeah.
She was
For $8K.
For $8,000, she spun.
What?
So I'm actually going to go back and recomp that property. And if it comes out to be that maybe we could come up to like 38, I'll still stick with it. But I think at the end of the call when we ended it, she's like, let me go back and see what's going on with the other company and see if they're actually legit and all that stuff. So she was still second guessing. But I recorded the call, and I think we'll still win on it. And that was the one we wanted to keep. But yeah, I told her that I'm going to still come down and visit her no matter what.
Well, you also brought up too that we were going to deed access to her, right? You were going to give that. So that turned it a bit too. That turned it a bit too, because I said the other people are going to actually just deed you access or whatever the case may be, and probably subdivide the property. I said, what we want to do is cut you out the access, and then we get deeded access, and then you would take that chunk back to you. Basically, I talked to the town. And, so she's like, okay, I do like that better. So there are caveats to working with us versus the other guy. I said, the other thing is the other guy's going to lock you up to 40 and then probably get you under contract and reduce you down to 30 anyways. Yep. It's up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. We literally just had this happen and turned it around today. You remember this commercial deal in Washington we've been telling you guys about? You've looked at it. We've looked at it on the calls with the group.
Yep.
I think I told you guys a week or two ago, hey, someone came in. They just kind of beat us to the punch. I think they made a slightly better offer, but they had 14 days for due diligence. And I was like, I just don't think these guys are going to close. Well, sure enough, today we get a call from the guy. They didn't close. We got the deal. What's interesting is our first offer was at 205. Comes back around and we're like, hey, the deal's changed. We're at 185. So we ended up locking it up at a better place. I think the truth is so many land investors out there, especially if they're sending blind offers, a seller signs that and they think, oh, this is a deal, goodie. The person closes, right? They just probably got some silly offer. So there's almost Dennis. I mean, I part of me thinks like, you don't want to let an opportunity slip by, but from what I've seen, most of these offers are bullshit. Mm-hmm. So I would almost just say, just wait. I would be shocked if these people actually pull through. I would try to fact find. Do you know how she talked to them on the phone yet, or is it just like, yeah. That ain't nothing.
Trying to squeeze a little bit more.
I know. That's what I said. I said, we'll talk Friday. I said, you do your due diligence, send that PA back, because she said she already mailed it back in. All it was is she got a 2-page and she mailed one back in.
Yeah.
And then she's, so I said, just send it back. So get them on the phone, and then, we'll talk Friday. I
did have a signed contract with her though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you fill out a memorandum, or is it too late?
No, I can file a memorandum right now.
Yeah, we talked about that, but we're trying not to go that route. And she's a nice lady, Yeah. I think Dennis will just turn on more charm and take her out to lunch and figure it out.
What's the flight? $200? I'll just go down there and hang out with her. Take her out to lunch. To make 60 grand, I'll pay 200 to have lunch.
Well, I do think too. I think that even at 38, I think it's still a deal. When we look at the subdivided numbers, it made sense.
Yeah,
it probably doesn't mean that you keep that one lot. You guys want to keep one, but if you sell both, I think it's still a no-brainer. I think it's a 6-figure deal.
It still is. It could be a 6-figure deal. For posterity, I was thinking about keeping the one deal, but now I'm like, she didn't care. I said, what do they plan on doing? She's like, I don't care. And that in my head, I was like, good breadcrumb. So now you won't care what I do with it either.
Right.
You just care about getting money and closing.
Yeah.
Now I know who you are. No problem. So.
Well, yeah, stay posted on it. So what was that? You said you guys got a contract today. Let's just touch on that. I'd like to hear about the deal, maybe even look at the deal if you guys want to pull it up.
So no contract today. We have one that's out that I actually got to follow up with.
Okay.
But the only reason why I didn't follow up with yet, she's got to give me some information. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We have one that could be a potential contract. I could send that to you.
Yep.
Is it that one? The one with the deeded access?
It's got deeded access. Yeah. The other one we have that we got last week, it looks, she knowingly knows that she's got multiple heirs. Knowingly knows it. She said, no, we already sold a bunch of properties and all this stuff. I said, okay, great. Do you know all the heirs? Like, she's like, yeah. Oh, yeah, I already paid Susan. I already paid this person, whatever. I think we talked about it briefly last week. So I guess she knows that one. But this one we got today, I'll drop it in the chat over here.
Okay.
It's Warren County. Oh, yeah, it's in the chat. Rob put it in
the chat. Aggressive with Warren County. Just absolutely aggressive. But
Warren County's aggressive with us.
That's the thing.
Which at a certain point does make you wonder, though. I mean, how many of these deals are going to come back with issues?
Yeah.
Kind of does, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting a lot of deals in the market, but it is a little weird that so many deals have come from here. And I think as we've started to unearth, okay, some of these definitely have issues. Yeah. So we'll just kind of refine that initial due diligence process. We'll talk about that here today. I think that's going to be interesting for the group. Like, what are the things you should do when a new deal comes in, right? Let me share my screen and we'll take a look-see here at this deal. So walk us through, what are the numbers on this?
So this one we mailed at 17.5, and I've already kind of like laid the groundwork. So it looks like we're going to have to drop the price. It has, if you look at this from the corner, it's got 1, 2, 3 lots.
Mm-hmm.
And then on that lot line right there, on the third lot line, there's access right there. But she said it's 10 years overgrown. So right 1, 2, 3. Yep, right there.
Off of Coon Myrick Road.
Yep.
Okay.
So she said there's access right there. She said they used to use it for camping. They would go right to the lake, which is
small little cabin right here too.
It's actually like a pole barn.
Okay.
But she said they I'm so mad. She had a 56 Airstream on the lot.
It's worth a lot nowadays.
And somebody stole it.
Oh,
and then they also stole all the metal from the pole barn. I was like, oh man. So
people are ruthless.
Yeah, they really are.
There's some crazy houses right in that area too, because it's right off that Lake Gaston.
Yeah.
There's some monster houses over there.
A little different. I don't know. I mean, we're kind of. I mean, we are close to the lake. We are close to the lake. I don't think this is probably. This is going to be a recreational lot, though, in my opinion. I don't think someone's going to come and build on this.
No.
So how big is this again?
7 acres.
Okay, let's go take a look. 7 acres. Let's go look at just like 5 to 10. So you guys got it at 17.5. Here's a 7 at 65 for sale. Been up for 89 days.
Sounds like they're offering asking too much.
Yeah, what did you guys underwrite this at?
I haven't yet. So we got this in just today, and all I did was talk to the seller, just confirm easement, confirm ownership. So this is another thing I'm doing now. I'm like, before I even go crazy, let me confirm that she owns the property and confirm how she inherited. So she purchased the property and all that stuff. So
I was going to say, for all the chaos of today, we have like definitely identified some things that we need to do, like our process of, making sure who's owning the property before we even send it to title, and,
Are you guys using the LIA checklist for Pebble?
We just got it installed.
Yeah, we had Pebble, but we didn't have the checklist in there. Yeah. So I just updated all that and set all the automations and everything. So
that's going to be helpful. And I'll put that in the chat for folks.
Yeah.
Let's kind of go through, though. Like, I'll give you just right off the top of my head. And inside Pebble, you guys have all of the the step-by-step kind of workflow for every stage when you have a lead both on the acquisition side and on the dispo side. I'll put this in the chat for everyone.
Yeah.
Tom, thanks for joining us, man. So that makes it pretty, yeah.
Check the private chat real quick.
Okay. You want me to put it in the private chat?
No, I sent you something.
Oh, I think the link is dead. Let me see. Hopefully they didn't change it. They might.
I just tried going to it, so.
Oh no, it works.
Oh, okay.
Drop
it in the comments then. The other one, the pay kickstart, the 50% off.
That link's dead.
It might be. Yeah, I just tried going to it. I wanted to make sure if anything.
Oh, let's see. Oh, sorry, quick interruption here. Let's make sure the link works. Yeah, the link works.
Okay.
I'll put that in the chat for everyone that wants to do.
Cool.
I was trying to put it in the chat, but I was getting 404. So
yeah, for everyone that wants to get the 0 to Hero 90-day challenge link, is right there. I wonder if that was, yeah. Well, anyways, so let's talk about the step-by-step process, right? New lead comes in. What do we need to do? Well, I like to go through and just do like high-level due diligence, high-level comping, and we'll typically get on a call with them. So like that first step for us, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go look at who's calling us and who the heck's on title. Do those match up? Are there other people on title? How's the property held? Is it in a trust? Is it in an LLC? If it's like in an LLC or a trust, I'm not going to go super deep on that. We just will make sure, let's make a note to bring this up on the call. But we're already going to have some kind of suspicions raised there. Same thing. If I see there's 2 people on title, okay, that's going to need, we can't get off that first call without addressing that. Those are like really big points. And I would say like 1 out of 100, maybe 2 out of 100 leads call us. They don't own the property. They've got no affiliation with the land, or like they've been paying taxes on their dead granddaddy's property and they think they own it or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's one that we had come up to.
Yeah, yep. So you got to make sure that those are connecting there. And if it doesn't connect, we don't need to figure that answer out, but we need to bring it up on that first call. The next thing is we're going to go pull up the property. We're going to look at physical access. We're going to go look at legal access. I'm not going to start going and pulling like deeds and whatnot to try to validate if it's got an easement or a deeded easement. But again, if there's any red flags there, we're going to bring that up. I think just from like a physical access standpoint, that property in North Carolina that you guys are talking about that had roads coming in at both sides.
Yeah.
Was it a red flag just from a physical standpoint? Like that road was atrocious. It like went through someone's front lawn. It was like this horrible dirt road.
Yeah.
That should have already been raising flags. And it should raise some flags on the legal access side of things, although it's a little more advanced. That takes nuance to kind of read between the lines. And of course, you never know until you start going and pulling the deeds. Was that addressed on the first call with the seller?
I asked him, I said, what's the legal access? He's like, oh, yeah, you drive right up either railroad or Raritan. You could drive right through it, right to the lot.
Okay.
And
I mean, he still thinks he has legal access, right?
He still thinks he does.
Yeah. And I mean, there's his point is somewhat legitimate because at one point they did have legal access. You could see how he could get confused.
Yeah.
Then the next thing we're going to go look at is we're going to go look at topography. So just pull up Google Earth or 3D aerial view, go see how that property sits. I'm a big fan of the contour lines and MapRide as well. Those are really helpful. You're going to go check floodplains, wetlands. You can use the FEMA flood maps. You can use the flood maps on DataTree. If you pull the property detail report on DataTree too, it'll give you like the flood panel name. You can go search that in the FEMA flood maps. Then we're going to go through and we're going to go look at back taxes. Are there any back taxes owed on the property? If there are, okay, we're going to need to address that on that first call. Let's see, what else am I missing here? Obviously, you're going to go run through your comps. That's pretty much it.
Confirm acreage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. So yeah,
HOAs.
Yeah, we're going to go look at the legal description. We're going to look at the acreage listed. Sometimes you can see a disconnect there, right? You're going to see like, oh, it says 12 acres, but the legal description says 18. I typically trust the legal description over whatever those platforms are telling you for acreage. That's a really good point. Yeah, validate if it's in a subdivision. Is there an HOA or a POA there? If there is, what's the story on that? And I'm going to bring it up to them like, hey, are there any dues owed? Is there a lien on the property for HOA dues? Sometimes DataTree will actually register and pull it up for you if there is an HOA lien. Not always, though. I want to go see if I can pull the CC&Rs for the HOA too, because that's really going to tie into how we build an offer, right? If there's really insane covenants on their property, we're going to have to be pretty damn aggressive with how we build out an offer for that. What am I missing there? I think that's pretty much it in terms of kind of building out our arsenal for that first call. Now you'll see inside Pebble for that checklist, there's way more things to work through. Those won't always be tackled on the first call though, but we need to get this lead file prepped. We need to have some of those questions in order, or at least hopefully answered. Something we won't get answered into that first call though. There are plenty of folks that like if they have suspicions on a property, they'll just go and pay for like a cheaper title report. They'll get like an online title abstractor to pull a report if you have questions. I wouldn't do it on every property. Some people do. I think that's overkill. We've worked with so many title companies that we've used for so long that if we send a deal to them and it falls apart, they typically don't charge us. It just depends on the closing attorney or title company you're using. So for these deals that fell apart, do they still charge you guys?
He's charging us, but he said he's going to credit it towards other deals we bring him because we're just building a relationship with him. Yeah. So it's $1,000 loss, but technically we have more deals right in our pipe that we're just confirming things on before we send to him. So we should be able to get it back. It's not really like a loss. It's just like it sucks for now.
Yep.
You know, but you know, what can you do?
I mean, it's cost of doing business. Some of this stuff, like we're learning the hard knocks. I'm glad we're learning these on the first handful rather than, 20 properties in.
Or big deals.
Some of this stuff up and wrap our processes up and everything. Tighten it up.
It's the nature of the beast. I just think that like I always expect a certain percentage, and it really depends on kinds of deals you're going after and like how good you are at reading seller leads. But I expect that X percentage, call it 10 to 15% of deals, are either going to fall apart once you have the contract, the seller's going to do something weird and sell it to someone else or whatever it may be, or it's going to fall apart in title. It's like I don't think there's much you can do to really work around that. Some of that shit just happens. I would rather have it fall apart in title than try to become a title abstractor and like get all my ducks in a row prior to sending it to title. Let title do their job. We'll try to get as many of our questions answered, really just to inform our offer price. I don't need to know the status on X, Y, and Z. All I need to know is like, okay, the access sucks and there's no easement in place. So I'm going to have to renegotiate my offer to X, Y, and Z. But the actual specifics can just get answered in title for me. So I know you guys have some properties in closing right now. Where are we at with those?
All right. So we have so far one deal that's basically getting funded and closed. It's a buy for 61, sell for 125. Okay. So pretty good deal. I mean, that if we just did that deal alone with our marketing, it's still a win, right?
Yeah.
It's like a $60,000 profit. So this deal specifically, the agent we worked with, he knows this line. Like he knows this property, this area, this whole thing, and he knows the buyer. And he's like, here's what you got to do to make this actually sell. He's like, I could sell it right now for $8,000 an acre, $80,000, like it'd be almost $90,000 sale price. He's like, but if you do this, I could get you anywhere between 125 and 140. So I was like, okay. So he's basically saying clear a driveway and like a ring in the center. Okay. He's got forestry guys. He's got the guy that's going to lay the mulch. It'll be done in 2 days. Done. Okay. It'll cost like $8,000 though. So it just turns our entry from 61,000 to almost 70,000.
Yep.
But our potential profit goes up by like 30 grand.
Yeah. So that AK makes you 30, really.
Right. So is it, like for you, is that something you would do? And he's like, also the time. He's like, I'll sell the property in like 30 days or 45 days rather than it could sit on the market for a couple months.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm not super well versed in making like physical improvements to properties. Like my playbook has always been to add value through fixing title issues, creating access, subdividing, which kind of is a physical improvement, but most cases you're just getting a new survey, new APNs, new legal description. We've got tons of LIA members that have gone through and done clearing on properties. You can expect to pay to get underbrush cleared, I don't know, $2,000, $2,500 an acre, something like that. Sounds like it's a little more than just that though, right? You're also kind of not laying in a road, but like creating a path, right?
Yeah, it's 500
gravel, right?
It's 500 feet of gravel and then almost 3 acres total cleared.
Yeah.
So it's pretty sizable.
Pretty sizable. That's a pretty typical coop, though. Coop quote.
I was like, is that what they call the area that they clear out? Is the coop?
Oh, it's funny. I just got a notification on my phone from someone named Coop. So it's just like,
it's funny how your brain works like that, right?
I know. You could expect to pay like $8 a linear foot for a road like that. So if you got 500 feet, it's like $4,000 plus the clearing. That's a pretty accurate quote, I think.
Good.
So yeah, we've had a few folks inside the program go through and do this. Usually the framework is like you make back your cost plus some, but you sell the property like that, right?
And that's worth it.
Yeah, it's just totally worth it, right?
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of these deals, especially like in North Carolina, what's really tough about these densely wooded properties is someone drives up in their car and they say, what the heck am I looking at? Like they just don't see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to, what I like to do is like, you could either put in like a little footpath or just clear some underbrush, or what you guys are doing is like kind of the next level. I think if you went and tried to go shop providers yourself without Chase, your realtor, quotes would probably be higher, but more than anything, it's the time frame. That's usually what stopped me from doing it. It's like, dude, this is going to take so long. That time that we're going to save from selling the property, I'm going to lose on that 45 days it takes just to do the damn thing.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's got the contacts and they can come in and just bang it out is awesome. That's not always.
He said they're like waiting ready too, right?
That's crazy.
What they say, like a week?
He said they're doing another property like pretty much down the street.
Yeah.
So he said I could get him to come out there. He's like, the problem is, because I asked him, I'm like, can you just clear like, just the road, or can you just clear just something? Doesn't have to be the full 3 acres. And he's like, the problem is they have day minimums. So he's like, they're going to have a 2-day minimum to do this type of job. I'm like, okay, I get that. So he's like, you're working with that constraints.
Yeah.
So what he's going to do is actually reduce the gravel. Actually, the quote originally came in at like 11,000. So I said, can you reduce the gravel driveway? Maybe only do like 100 feet and the rest goes to dirt. And then it goes into the clearing.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, I could do that. He's like, the thing is, you got to think, guys that are coming in here, they're like principals and, supervisors and CEOs and all that stuff. That's 45 minutes outside of Raleigh. They're going to drive up 401, get off their highway with their Denali's, and they want to pull onto a driveway, look at their home site.
Yeah.
He's like, it's kind of like if you paint a house green. And actually, this is how I correlate it, because I've worked with houses. If you paint a house like an odd color, like a pink or a green, people can't see through the color. They're like, oh, I don't want to buy the house that's got green walls.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference. You could just add the driveway. But he's like, Chase, like it's a checklist item.
Yep.
If you do this, you're going to get those people that are like, oh, cool, that's done. Let's do the rest.
Yep.
And that includes a perk test too. So that's another bad benefit.
You wait for $8,000. You're also getting a perk test?
Yes. $8,000 also includes the perk test. Forgot about that.
Oh, that's a strong quote, man. That's a really good quote. Yeah. And in places like North Carolina, especially like the western part of the state, where some of these properties can be a little hilly. I don't think this is in the western part of the state per se. This is more central, I think.
It's like northeast. It's on the Virginia border.
Okay,
it's pretty flat.
Raleigh, Durham. It's pretty flat.
Flat-ish. But man, every deal we list in North Carolina, that is always a question. Has it been perked? Does it perk? Do you know? It's like, yeah. I'm going to be really curious to see how that plays out. I think it's going to work in your guys' favor.
We'll keep you guys updated on the Wednesday call.
Yes. Do you want to touch on what you guys are doing with the Wednesday call and kind of the 12-month cadence? I'm going to go grab some water. While I do you want to fill in the group on what's going on?
Yeah, so we're going to continue doing a weekly Wednesday call. And in that call, it's going to be like an early morning call where I come in and I talk our KPIs, deals we have working, things like that. I'll price new markets that we got upcoming. I'll kind of just go over our full business, tell you, hey, this is what we've done, this is what we've lost, this is what we've made, all that kind of stuff. And then what me and Sumner talked about is doing not necessarily like a consistent weekly, but every so often, every 4 weeks or something like that, we'll all join together. Sumner, Rob, myself, all join together, and we'll do like a full business check-in. Where we are, how many leads we got, how much mail we're pushing out, what are our KPIs, what are we sucking at, what we're good at.
Yeah, full transparency.
Yeah, full transparency, because we're growing this in public, and we want to show everybody what we're doing and how we're winning and how we're losing. Like just today, I mean, we're showing like full truth. We lost $50,000 of pipeline profit and $1,000 of actual cash, not to mention opportunity costs and all that other stuff, just on 2 deals. And then we have a third one that we might lose on too. So like
entrepreneurship is ugly, right?
It sucks. And what do we do? What do we do? Push more mail, right? Let's get more leads. Like that's, and that's another thing we'll talk about too. We mailed a couple counties and haven't had success in them, right? So for us, it's like, okay, we go back to the drawing board with those counties, or we should be pushing 2 or 3 counties per clip. So at least like we don't have a dips and dives of lead flow. We should have a consistent flow.
And we're still early on those as well, especially like that one of those calls with Sumner where he was just like, yeah, you got to give it a good month before you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hammer yourself. So we're like a week week on one of them and, a few days on the other. But
Yeah.
no real leads yet.
Yeah. It's almost unfortunate we selected a 90-day time period. I mean, it's cool to compress. Yeah, and show people what's possible. And I don't mean this to like BS, but literally the 250 that's in your guys' pipeline is probably 40 to 60% of what you guys will get in total from all this. And so that's why we're going to extend the feedback. I always have the utmost respect for people that build in public. And I always wish, like, if I started over, I would build my land investing business in public. Building it now in public just like really isn't that cool. It's like, okay, you're already doing it. But like to go from zero to wherever you end up is, I think, such a cool thing to share. I think for all businesses, it's like this really cool thing too that kind of creates this marketing flywheel. Not so much necessarily for a land business, but like you're talking about with Tootie Cookies, your wife's company. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, share all the metrics, the revenue, everything. And not only is that inspiring people, like, oh, I should buy some cookies from them. So I think the build in public standpoint is really cool. Before we dive into working with buyers and that whole process, you want to just share with the group big takeaways from this 90-day. I know we've talked a little bit about this, but I don't think you could kind of stress this point enough in terms of like, what were the ahas? What were the things that mattered more than you anticipated? What were the things that you would give to someone that's at the 90 days prior to where you guys are now? Like if someone was just starting on this journey, what's the takeaway you'd pass down to them?
I think, go ahead, Rob, you go first.
I would say like first thing is, like I said in one of the calls, surrender to the system. Follow the playbook. Don't try to recreate the wheel.
Don't get cute.
A lot of people have already paved the way, and it's a proven system. So, don't try to get cute. Don't try to outthink it. Wait until you have some like true success and money in the bank before you start kind of implementing new and creative ideas. Something that's already been figured out.
Yeah, I think new and creative ideas are much more meaningful when you've already done the thing. Like people try to like postulate what's going to happen, but they've never done a deal. It's like, just don't think about it. Just do it. Yeah. We blatantly ripped off your saying at the LIA Friday meetup. We said, created shirts that said surrender to the system. And it's so true. It's the folks that get the best results. I think it's a lot of
trademark that.
Yes, seriously. That's a lot of what's happened in this 90-day though. It's just like releasing any preset expectations or notions of what you think and just kind of submitting to the system.
And that was a struggle too. That was a struggle for us because coming from houses and, it is, you do say this too, like where land is almost kind of where wholesaling was back in the 90s and the 2000s, it seems like. Yeah. So there's a lot of cool things where you go, oh my God, this would work perfectly here. And we had to fight that through the whole thing where it's like, oh, I got an idea. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Follow the playbook.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I would say like one of the biggest things I picked out is like we tried dripping and driving mail and like doing our thing. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the biggest fix to every problem in your business is just getting more leads. Yeah. And just like we should really have focused on pushing way more mail out instead of dripping and hoping, right? We should really just like, and that's the kind of like one of the things we're thinking about in our business is maybe doing like a bi-weekly drop of like 5,000 or 10,000 mailers every bi-weekly.
Yeah.
Instead of doing like trying to price out like all these little markets and get stuff out every week. I don't know how do you think about that? But like we'd still get like a pretty sizable amount every week, every month, but just on a bi-weekly basis. I don't know.
Mailing out bi-weekly instead of weekly?
Yeah, like big chunks bi-weekly.
I mean, it's not the end. It's not the end of the world. I do think, though, as you grow, that becomes really difficult just to manage what happens, right? So if you're sending out 4,000 mailers a month, 2,000 every 2 weeks, not that big of a deal. You're doing like 40,000 mailers a month, and it's like in 20K blocks. When that all hits at the same time, shit's going to get pretty crazy. Yeah, I think as much as you can, you do want to stretch that. It's kind of like what they do with Pebble, right? Where you could drip mail daily. That's a really cool feature. Because like it should lead to, what is this person saying in the chat? Should lead to consistent lead flow coming in and not these big spikes. Those big spikes can kind of start to stretch your bandwidth. Okay, the one thing that I want to know for you guys, what was the most difficult part about all this, would you say?
I think the transaction side, right?
Transaction side for sure, but that's always a fault. Yeah. But I think trying to pull back the reins a little bit and not go too fast because you just want to also just like bulk send and just like get everything out there and just see what comes in because you get excited. But it's also like you also kind of got to like pick the leads up. Sometimes there's going to be work, and it's not as easy as just getting a contract and going forward.
No. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think that's where most people struggle. That's pretty damn common.
I'll tell you, one of the things I thought was actually a little simpler than I initially thought was the market selection and pricing. It's simple. Like it's not easy. It takes time and it takes reps to like get decent at it. But after you do it a handful of times, it's just kind of figuring out where you want your offer to be at, what percentage when you're sending it out. The rest of it has been, try not to overthink it and try not to make it more complicated. I tried making spreadsheets and figuring out the hot zips and blah, blah, blah. And it's just figure out what you're targeting, comp it as best as you can. You're doing a percentage of that anyway. If you don't feel as good, and make it a little lower, and get the mail out.
Yeah.
Have you guys had a chance to toy around with the market selection platform?
I was just going to say that. So like this week, getting that market selection platform is just like clutch. It just changes everything. Like how we can pick markets. It opened my eyes to like a bunch of markets that I never even would have thought of. Right. Yeah. And it's like now that tool basically saves me a couple hours every week, and it saves us a ton of money of having VAs go and like pull data for us and scrape it, whatever. It just gives us like a huge time saver. And now I can sit there and like pull a bunch of markets, do all this stuff. It's absolutely worth every single penny for this thing.
Yeah. And I'll say too, we tried doing something along this lines, not nearly as big or nearly as in depth. And we found out on the second time that our VA didn't input the right data until we were like a week into like figuring out markets and stuff. You're just like, oh crap. Like we got to like clean this up. And now we have to have some kind of like quality check on it. Now this is just like pull it up, find some markets, go.
And frankly, this is probably
back in 1 second.
Cheaper what you're paying the VA, right? $500 a month. Yeah. Hard to get a VA to even do a tenth of this at that much, right? And let alone having correct data. For those that don't know, we created a market selection platform. You go over to landinvestor.co/market, and it'll take you on over. I think right now we've got somewhere less than 20 spots, somewhere between 15 and 20. I can't remember the exact number. I'm just going to show real quick for those that don't know what this is. Pretty cool, right? So you can come over and say, hey, I'm looking for 40 to 100 acres. Then you can start toggling what you want to see. So let's say you want to see a pending sell-through rate of at least 20%. Let's say you want to see, hey, there's at least 50 properties. At least 50 properties available for the supply. It'll start loading this for us. Hold on.
And this is just an every month thing. It's going to come out, and we're going to be able to pull this up. Are we going to be able to go backwards and see, check in on like July and August?
I wish. So the problem is, as it stands right now, the way we have to get the data, we are kind of beholden to the filters that they have. So if you go look at any platform, whether it's Zillow, Land.com, Realtor.com, Redfin, any of these platforms that list properties, they never give you the option to go through and say, show me what happened in May or June or December. Mm-hmm. They always work off of increments. So any of these platforms, which that's all roughly the same data, is going to you're going to be held hostage by how they populate things. I mean, we could backtrack. It would be pretty tricky, and I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze, as I always like to say. Really, what we're not. The thing about demands is I don't really care what happened in June or what happened in April. I want to know what's happening now and what the trend has been. Mm-hmm. That's really it. And how much supply there is, right? That's like really all I need to know. Whether April was a good month or a bad month doesn't really affect how July is going to be, right? What affects it though is like how much supply is there? How much is under contract that's selling through? So right now we're looking at least 20% of the supply is currently under contract. You can see the makeup of out of county versus out of state owners. We want to keep our supply in kind of a bandwidth that meets our metrics, which is typically for us by 50 to 250 properties available. And that's really it, right? So we can go see based off of all these different states where the action is. So Colusa County is pretty crazy on the pending, but terrible on the other ones. Like the trend is pretty awful there, right? And so you just kind of want to stack together all these filters. I think like one of the takeaways that we had in building this is like, not only do we have to source the data and keep accurate data and all that stuff, we also have to kind of deliver it in a way that's easy to interpret. And I think the more filters you add, unless they're really relevant, it just doesn't really give you bang for your buck.
Yeah.
I don't think categorizing by a month would be super duper helpful in terms of bringing new insights to the table. It's a nice to have. I don't know if it's a need to have. But I know in the beginning, you guys probably spent in this challenge. I mean, how many hours went to selecting markets? Would you guess?
Oh, we spent a lot of hours.
Dozens at least.
Yeah, just sitting there and like typing numbers and this and that, like transferring stuff. And then it was like, oh my God.
Jacking up the spreadsheet from time to time too. Like we got to re-input stuff. And
I really, really wish we started the challenge with this. It's almost like
that would have been awesome.
Find someone new and start them over on the 90-day challenge just with this and see the difference. Well, let's talk about working with buyers, right? I think if you guys, for anyone that's signed up to 90-day challenge, when it goes live on the 28th, you'll see that we've spent a disproportionate amount of time talking about market selection, talking about acquisitions, because frankly, that's where the money's made, right? Mm-hmm. Dispositions is important. I'm going to go through and show you guys how we sell properties. I'm also going to talk about the difference between using a realtor versus having dispositions internally. Now, I know for all these deals, maybe minus one of them, you guys will have to let me know, you're going to be using a realtor on. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, the one that we were going to just direct list ourselves is the one that kind of died today.
Okay.
But the rest of them, we were just looking at it. We're like, look, I want to just focus on finding more markets and mailing, and let's just let the realtor focus on the selling part of it. So it's a different model for some people, and that's just kind of our thing. But yeah, for the most part, we're just using a realtor.
I think when you're first starting out, that's probably the move. I think it's kind of a waste of time and a waste of money to try to build a dispositions arm in your business. But you will be held hostage by what kind of properties you can do. It's like you will be capped on certain kinds of properties just using realtors. There's just some deals that don't make sense. We'll get into my CRM and kind of show you guys deals that you wouldn't be able to get a realtor to use. And the other thing is that while a realtor is going to show the property, which is awesome, if that lead is not hot and ready to go now, they're not going to follow up with them. That's not the game they're going to play. Yeah. So you are going to have some slippage there. The other thing too is that you guys are pretty much just going to be using the MLS, and by virtue of that, you're going to have some limitations on the exposure you can get on your properties. What I will say about selling land, at least what I've seen, is that really all we can do is pick the right markets and buy the right deals. That's the obvious shit. That's the stuff that really moves the needle, right? Mm-hmm. Everything else from there is these small little things that do compound. And what I've seen that really compounds, obviously good listing package, syndicating the listing, getting it on as many platforms as possible, pricing the listing intelligently, adding owner finance terms, having great photos, and telling a story in that listing and with your photos, right? Kind of casting a vision and letting someone buy into that vision. For a lot of the deals that we're doing that are mid-market, I don't know, 250K and less, maybe down to 25K, somewhere in that range. These are typically first-time land buyers. They've got a vision. It's tiny home, homestead, off-grid life, whatever it may be. And so you're very much dealing with a consumer, right? It's the same shit when you guys were selling houses, I'm sure. Like Dennis said, I don't like the color, stuff like that, right? So when you just go and put up a listing with a data tree image and you say, nice 10-acre lot, it's well, what vision are you casting? Not much. Consumers are so fickle that they could look at that property that might even be priced better, but then they see ours that might price a little bit more, but it's just we are telling them the story they want to hear. It's going to resonate a lot more. So, doing all that stuff right on the marketing side in terms of getting leads, it's similar to seller leads, right? Speed to lead is important. It's definitely not as important as we see on acquisitions, but it is important. Really, that role, though, is you're just doing a frick ton of follow-ups. You're staying present and relevant with these people over time. So weekly newsletters, follow-up cadences specific to that person, sharing relevant properties to them. One of the things that we do is anytime we drop the price on a property, we send out a text blast to any of the previous leads that have reached out on that property. And then you're just kind of like an errand boy. You're just answering questions. Someone says, yeah, I think I really like this property. I'm concerned though, can I pull a fifth wheel trailer and live on it? It's all right, let me get that answer for you. And we bring it back to them. So you're really not strong arming people into selling. That's what I've found. The other thing is that I'm a big believer that you've got to remove friction for someone to buy. You got to make it super simple for someone to buy. So let me show you my screen. This is true in any sales environment. For whatever reason, I think people start to forget this in lands. Like, what's the easiest way to get someone to buy something? Well, most likely, if you're on a sales call with them, it's probably easiest to get them to pull up their credit card and buy right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
When they're inspired, when they're motivated. If we have to make that process filled with friction and complexity for them to buy the property, it's going to be a lot harder to get them to commit. And so for every deal on our website, I mean, people can literally go and buy it right then and there. And so if we're having a call with them and like they're eager to like lock this thing down and go visit it and then see if they want to buy it or do X, Y, and Z and get it sent off to title, we actually don't have them place an earnest money deposit in title. We'll have them go and place it on our website. Or if it's an owner finance property, if the down payment's less than $5,000, we'll just have them process it through our website. So that allows us to remove a lot of that friction from buying the property, right? Someone really likes this deal, they'll come here and hit reserve now and reserve it. I think like that's the one part with having a realtor too. Those processes don't really apply as much. I mean, you can do it. It's a little funky though. As you guys know, any real estate deal is filled with friction. It's like, find the title company, call them, get their wire instructions, send in the $500 earnest. You got to be really down to buy that property to go through all that rigmarole. So if you do those things right, the disposition process should be pretty simple. When I first got into the land business, I came from a sales environment. So like my belief was like, let's sell these people, right? Let's strong arm into buying it. This just doesn't work. Let's go I'm going to show you guys some recent buyers that we've had. I'm kind of show you how this all works, right? Here's a buyer that we got 2 months ago. This guy bought a property from us in Arizona. We'll start bottom to top, right? You guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So May 16th, this guy fills out a form, right? It says, I am interested. I'd like to take a look at this property. It's like how most of these forms come to us, right? Very open-ended, very broad. Immediately, he gets what we call our, this is actually our intro email. It just says that his property detail report is coming. So like we talked about in week 11, we use lead magnets. Like any other business that uses the internet, you've got to convince people to reach out to you or to opt in. So we say, hey, we'll give you a TLP special property detail report. Really all it is a reiteration of the listing. That gets sent out. He immediately gets a call. It's just a voicemail. We didn't get him to pick up. He gets a text. He responds to the text. This is all in the same day. He says, hey, I'm going to go check it out sometime this week and we'll contact you further. And we just keep on following up with him in the meantime, right? Here's the PDR. This is what it looks like. Again, gives them the option to buy the property here, some context on who we are, context on the property. We can actually literally spell out exactly how to purchase the property. You got to assume most of these people are first-time land buyers. So like this whole process is very foreign to them. And you'll see all the back and forth right here just to get this little $10,000 deal done, right? The problem is most realtors ain't going to do this. No. And most realtors for a starter won't even take on this deal. There's no way. It's too small. And so that's why I said you are kind of held hostage by the realtors that you're the deals you can go after by using a realtor. Let's go look at another lead here. So
how much of your follow-up is automated, like your touches like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Very little of it, right?
Okay.
So if it's an auto email when they fill out this form, call, text, the rest of the emails is all going to be manual. Okay. Now, if the guy falls out of like this guy just doesn't answer us for a month, let's say, we'll put him into what's called an action plan here. So we can put this guy into like a follow-up action plan. And so if someone just goes totally dark on us, then I'll start leaning on automation. I think it's a great way to ruin a dynamic with a lead if they're just getting blasted with automated texts and emails. It's so obvious, right?
Yeah.
Those days are long gone. People can see through that. And so I want to have an automated text and an email go out to just like get to the lead as quickly as possible. And then from there, it's all going to be manual. And if they go dark, I forget what the time period is internally. If they go dark after X date, we move them to a drip campaign. And then if they re-engage there, then we'll manually engage with them from there. We also send out weekly newsletters to our list for like little specials that we're running, reprices, new deals, whatever it may be. One of the cool things that we do as well, and this is something that even if you have a realtor, this is really straightforward to do. And one of the things that you'll see is like since starting this challenge, every single deal you've gotten has been in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at Follow Up Boss here, but this can be done in pretty much every platform. We tag leads for what deals they've reached out on. So this guy's actually reached out on multiple properties. So we got tagged for Colorado and New Mexico. And so when we get deals in those areas, if we want to send out a really targeted email, we'll just say, hey, give us all of our leads that are tagged New Mexico, and we'll go share that New Mexico deal or Colorado, whatever whatever it may be. We've got 10,000 people in our CRM. Like you do start to piss people off if you're just kind of setting like unsolicited, very broad land deals. If they're really cheap, people will take you up on it. But if we're like 10,000 plus, you usually just get people unsubscribing or saying like, don't contact me. It's just kind of annoying. If it's targeted, you get a better reaction and you don't piss off people on your list. I was just looking at this. This is actually showing all. I was wondering, like, these are so many land flip buyers. It's showing all land flip buyers. So let's remove this. And we're gonna go. So this is last activity. Let's just go and grab. This is an inbound call. Okay, so this is an Arizona buyer. This guy came in with an inbound call. Let's listen to this call together. He left us multiple voicemails back to back, which is kind of odd. Let's go look at this stuff. Looks like that's nothing. Whoops. It's nothing as well. Great content. This last one's probably
dead air.
So I get a question. Do you think this is like a model we should add to our business? Like doing these small like lots like this, just to, or should we just continue going upstream? Like
I think if you're for anyone that's just getting started in land, if you're a solo operator or you have a small team, upmarket's the move, right? Like for sure. There's limits to how far upmarket I would suggest going, but yeah, you guys' time is valuable. Every deal has a set number of steps and time involved in it. So I would stray away from that. But eventually you guys are going to get big and there's only so many big deals out there, right? And so like if you're doing $2 or $3 million a year and you're just going after 100K plus properties, you're going to get leads that own other land, smaller deals that have big spreads. And if you've already got the system in place, my belief is like, yeah, what's the additional strain on your team? Very little to bring those deals in. The way you fund them is also going to be a little bit different. So like, these aren't going to be JV deals. So that's a different can of worms as well. But no, for someone just getting started, I would not recommend going after small deals for a multitude of reasons. I also think that bigger deals is just more of a blue ocean. But the takeaway is small deal, big deal, the work that goes into working these leads needs to happen. And unfortunately, a realtor typically isn't going to do that, right? So what's the takeaway here? Well, I think the takeaway is we need to also be collecting those leads that the realtor is getting, right? I don't want the realtor to also just own all of their information. You guys don't get any of their contact info.
Yeah.
Let's say you put up a deal and you get 20 leads and one buys. Well, what happens to the other 19? They're still looking for land in North Carolina or whatever the state is. So we need to create a system to where you guys can get the leads info and you guys can also do the follow-ups because I don't think your realtor is going to do them. So like when I've used realtors, and this is why for the longest time I had such a bad taste in my mouth. I understand like this guy Chase brings a lot more value than just selling the deal. But we would get leads. He would call them once, they wouldn't pick up. He'd be done with them. We would work the heck out of them, re-engage them, give them to him, and then he would just be like, oh, sure, you could buy the property. And that's all he did, right? And so like I just found that the realtors are not going to do the heavy lifting in terms of follow-ups. Right. Sure, there are some out there that do it. I just doubt that most of them do, and at least it's been my experience.
So then do you think we should cross list this? Like, even though we have a realtor, like, should we do our own broker listing or?
So yeah, no, you can't. I don't think you can double list on that. Yeah. But what I would do is what we do is like, I would have them list on the MLS. I would also get subscriptions on all the other listing platforms, right? And you guys can run point on those. You guys, the leads will flow to you, and then you can pass them off to your realtor. I would still, when that lead flows to you, I would still have like some kind of automated sequence that goes out to touch them initially, and then I would get them routed to your realtor. I think eventually what will probably happen in the more short term is you guys aren't going to bring on a dispositions manager.
Yeah.
You'll probably bring on a $5 or $7 an hour VA that just runs follow-ups, right? And then when a lead gets re-engaged, you push them off to the realtor.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably like eventually what's going to happen. One question I had too is like for this property specifically, it's 5 for 60, sell for like 130, 129, whatever.
Yep.
Is that something you could offer? Would you offer owner financing, and how would you structure that for this lead?
Yeah, man, I would always offer owner financing. I can't think of a deal that I wouldn't, even if the math on the terms was kind of funky. So let's go through this, right? This is A buy for 60, you said we sell for 125 or 135?
Yeah, all in's going to be 70, but then there's a realtor on it too. So that kind of raises that question.
What are you guys paying the realtor?
10%.
All right, that's too high.
Yeah,
you guys
we talked about that on the last call.
We talked about it. Yeah, I'm working on getting him down. I feel like I got to do a few deals to get him down. That's kind of like because he works for Mossy Oak, so they're also listing on their platform. They're
it's a belief statement. I mean, I think like the guy may bring tons of value, and that 10% may pale in comparison to paying 5% to a realtor who's not as good. I doubt it though. Realtors are realtors, no matter what platform they're on. Yeah. I would say, especially for these higher price point properties, 5 to 6 points is plenty. Mm-hmm. The fact that you guys are even bringing him a quantity of deals off the rip, you guys have got leverage. Like I would, it's a live and learn. I mean, it's probably too late to renegotiate on them now.
No signed contract yet. We get so.
I mean, and we're getting his contacts work as well. Like we're already going to be getting how many 8K for cleaning.
So I say that again. Oh, you're giving his contacts work.
Yeah.
I mean that 10% is like paying a realtor, a single family realtor 6%. Like that is like the top of the top.
Retail.
It's pretty much unheard of. Yeah. So like, I mean, I think that 5 to 6, if you are 25K plus, is plenty. If it's a real small property, yeah, you could pay 10 points. But I think it's a good learning lesson. You guys definitely don't have to ever pay 10%. Mm-hmm. Even with all the stuff this guy's done for you, I still wouldn't. What's the total value, like list price of all these properties?
That probably around minus those. List price. I'm sorry. Let me add that up real quick.
300, 400K.
Yeah, close to about 400K.
Yeah, so this guy is going to make 40 grand potentially. At 6 points, he's going to make 24 grand or something like that. I mean, I still very much worth his time. And like a lot of these like straight up land realtors, if they're working with Mossy Oak or not, they probably make 100 to 200K a year. So you're coming in and making like 20 to 10% of his whole income off of one round of deals. At 5 or 6%, at 40%, at 40K, we're paying the guy too much. But it's a live and learn.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the question though. You're talking about owner financing terms on this deal, right? On bigger deals. So I mean, we can go over to the website. I'll show you guys what we typically do for bigger deals. For me, there's really no deal that doesn't get terms unless it's an owner financing deal, unless it's a double close deal. That might be a case where it doesn't really make sense. So like, here's a property where we've got a pretty big basis in it. We thought we were going to sell this thing at like 450 is what we had been told by realtors. We're in at like 200. Turns out that's not the case. So we got an offer last week at 350. They backed out. We got an offer at 300 yesterday and we countered it at 330. And I think they're going to take it, right? So expectations were kind of a little bit higher on this one. And it turned out the access is just really bad to this property. Anyways, this is a $300,000 property. So we're asking for 30% down. I would say for like these ultra high end, mid 6-figure properties, which I don't think this one that we're talking about is, you can probably get away with 20 to 30%. It's pretty damn typical. Now, if we go and look at like this tiny little property, right? We're selling this deal for $2,000 and we're asking for a $49 down payment. So peanuts. So what you find is like on these smaller properties, one, because the buyer typically really does have less money, and because there's just more people offering owner financing, you've got to be really competitive. I could say for certain, this deal that we first looked at here in Texas, I could guarantee you that in this town of Bastrop, we're probably the only person with owner financing terms. Mm-hmm. And the kind of buyer that's going to buy a $350,000 property, whether they buy it in cash or finance it, they have money. They can afford a $100,000 down payment. So typically I'm going to look at 20 to 30% down on those deals. The rub is like, we still want to see getting our full basis back in a year. That's still tough, right? That's still going to be tough on these bigger deals. And so usually the play there is to sell the note. That's typically what I would recommend on these bigger deals, unless your basis is just ridiculous in it. Like we've got a deal that actually could be a great owner finance candidate. Let's see where this is.
Would you also raise the price up for owner financing?
Didn't you say it was like 15 to 20% more usually when you're doing owner financing?
What do you mean?
The list price?
Well, so there's two different ways you can do it, right? So we're gonna sell this on a deed of trust, and so we are gonna charge interest. So it's just 5 to 7 years. Again, these are like we're giving like rough guidelines. If someone wanted to finance it for 3 years, sure, right? It's just we're gonna have to kind of renegotiate those terms. Cool thing about owner financings, there's so much flexibility on that. So here's a deal, right? We're like the down payment on this deal, we've got a really good basis in the property. The down payment on this deal gets us at like 80% of our basis in the property. So like you will get bigger deals, like the math just pans out really nicely in your favor, but it's definitely few and far between. Okay. So usually on those deals, we're going to just sell the note unless you're cool to keep it. You're probably going to be closer to like 16 to 24 months to get your basis back, which in my book, I like to get it back in 12 typically. Now on these smaller deals though, like on a deal like this, we're going to get our basis back if we factor in. So our basis in these properties, this property is $500 as our basis. We collect $249 down plus $49, so we get $300 off the rip. So we got about 2 to 3 months or so to get our full basis back, right? So like the owner finance models on big properties and small properties is almost like they're like two distantly related cousins. Like they don't even really like the rules are very different. The rules don't really apply there in the same sense. So Rob, to answer your question on this, on these smaller properties, we don't charge interest. We really just can kind of make up a price, frankly. It's going to depend on the timeline. It's going to depend on how quickly do you want to sell the note? Like how quickly do you want to get a buyer in on this? So like my belief is I always want to be really aggressive with my downs on these small properties and really aggressive with my monthlies. And I will extend the premium on that. So I might charge quote unquote more interest than most people. So the total note value is higher, but I pretty much in every market have the most aggressive terms. The thing with these smaller deals is that like you are not the only one offering terms. So just like you have to be competitive on the cash price, you also got to be competitive on the owner finance price. Let's just go and look at this, right? So we go look at land for sale in Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas. Go over to Land Watch. So let's just grab a random listing, right? Another 0.3 acre in the same subdivision. Oddly, in this one, they're kind of doing themselves a disservice. They actually don't talk about terms, which is pretty surprising. Let's grab this guy. So $75 for 60 months doesn't define what the down payment is. Here we are. Let's look at this guy, Matt Lee. Moonlit land. Owning land made easy. Interesting. So boom, financing, right? So like we got to compete with those folks. Now, if we went and looked at land for sale in Bastrop County, Texas, we don't have to go through every listing, but I would almost bet my life on it that we are the only people offering owner financing out here, right? And so just kind of a different model. I just think like the difference that I see with these kinds of deals is that you could creep up to a 30% down payment. You're never going to get that on the smaller properties. So like I would say probably on these bigger deals, I mean, we in years past, we've tended to keep all of them. I've never sold a note before. Nowadays, I probably would sell the note. I think I've taken on notes that are like, they're good, they're not great. Where it's like, hey, we bought the deal for 30, the note's at 120, but we don't get that 30 back for 16 months. I probably would just sell that note and redeploy the capital. Because I think I could just get way more bang for my buck by redeploying that capital.
And how much would a note buyer pay for it? So like, for instance, our property, 72K in, sell it for 145 on a 30% down note.
Yeah. So like the way I would look at that, right? Sorry, say it again. 140, 141.
So sell it for 145, $72,000 into it.
Yep.
Sell it for 145 with a 30% down.
Okay, so 30% down. So you're gonna get 43 grand, which gets you more than halfway, right? Probably 60% or so back to your basis. And then we've got about 100 grand of remaining principal on that loan, plus or minus a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So call it 60% of that gets you to 60 grand. So you've got the 60, you got the $43,000 down payment. So about 100 G's, right? A little over 100. So like the math that I typically use for note buyers is like if you're offering 20% down or 30% down, whatever the number is, let's say 20% down, you'll keep the down payment. The remaining principal, they'll probably pay about 60% for that. So it shakes out to be like about 80%. So that's usually how I would look at it. Now those numbers will change if you're offering 10% down or whatever it may be. I think that the interesting thing with owner financing, I think a lot of people get it twisted. Like they want to maximize their list price for cash and they want to maximize their owner finance terms. Well, the difference is like, okay, let's go say that for a cash sale, you can sell it in 4 months. And with your stupid little terms that you put together, you sell it in 3.5 months. Big whoop. I want great terms where it's like, I'm going to sell this thing cash in 4 months or like a month on terms. And even if it's a month on terms and I'm not meeting what I would make it on a cash deal, so be it, right? I would rather sell in a month every time, every day over 4 months, even if it's a little bit less. And so like you guys could walk away with 100 and you guys could do that in 30 days, or you could wait the additional 3 months and get an extra 40 grand. I don't know. It's up to you. I think that you guys could do more damage pulling that 100 and redeploying it into the business. Now, the rub here, though, is that you've got a realtor on it, and they're going to take 14 G's out of that down payment. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's really big. So like owner financing with realtors is a real downer. So like the way I think about it, or at least what I've seen, is that a lot of land investors who use realtors never really do owner financing. Since I'm a guy that doesn't use realtors, and I think having a realtor, you'll sell for more and you'll probably sell a little faster. So they don't have the luxury of using realtors. We move our properties by great marketing and all that stuff, but really by offering terms. So they're almost like those two models don't overlap a ton unless you set an arrangement with the realtor in the beginning about this is what happens if we get a note, if we get a note in the deal. I think that stuff's negotiable.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything is.
So, yeah, everything is. And so maybe if you get a seller finance buyer, it kicks down to just like a flat fee. So like, hey, you get 10 points, or if we get an owner finance buyer, it's 5 grand. And I think that's fair because the deal's way easier for them and you'll sell it faster.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think that's the other thing to negotiate too is if we're listing it on, Land Watch or something like that as well, that if we bring a buyer, that would also probably go down.
So some people talk about this. I think if you do the work and close the buyer, there should be some kind of fallback for that, right? So if you get a buyer lead from land.com, Rob calls him up, the dude's hot and ready, he's ready to go. Should you still pay 10 points to the realtor? Probably not. I don't think so. It's like I would want to discuss that. But let's say you get a land.com lead, you route it to the realtor talks to the guy, walks the property,
he does everything.
He should get comps. Just because you source the lead doesn't mean anything. But I have had many a times with realtors where we close the sale and the realtor still gets their full comp. And that's shame on me. I'm responsible for that by not setting the rules up front. I found realtors are pretty damn negotiable. I mean, we've had realtors where it's like, hey, we'll just pay a flat $1,000.
I mean, don't you think that would also probably make them more eager to do the work as opposed to just be sitting back if we're almost competing?
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, straight up. I think creating that competition. I think the other thing that I've really seen that moves the needles with realtors is crazy aggressive listing timelines. So like that listing agreement should last for, in my opinion, no more than 6 months, unless the property warrants it, right? But if it's just a standard whatever flip, like when we do double closes with realtors, it's weird that all of a sudden they start moving faster and get the deal done faster, opposed to when we have 12 months with them on a listing agreement, they seem to just take their sweet time to do it. So I think the timeline of the agreement matters. The competitive nature is interesting. I mean, I would have to imagine that would move the needle.
Yeah, I would definitely do a 6-month contract minimum with outs too. And I already kind of like hinted the other day, like, hey, if it's over 100 grand, it should be 8%. That should be like minimum.
Yeah, I mean that's
at least that. I'll probably get it down lower, but I've already hinted like, yeah, all right. I know another guy like in Oklahoma, he's 6% over 100 grand.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if your realtor Chase really wants the business too, it's like, dude, I could bring you deals for the next decade or half decade. I'm going to bring you volume. You've already seen that. Like in our first little dance together, I brought you 7 deals, but I ain't paying 10. I ain't paying 8. I'm paying 6 for any deal. I think that's fair. What other, like, the dynamic with a realtor is so much different when you're a consumer listing one property opposed to if you're a business that you could literally make this guy's whole salary.
Yeah,
I know.
It warrants having fair terms for the volume that you bring. And beyond that, one of my favorite things to build goodwill with sellers, or with realtors. I can't get my tongue twisted today. Anyone in the group, any friend that asks for a realtor in North Carolina, whoever it may be,
we're
push business to them.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's so much leverage in that arrangement. And I found these people will, not only in terms of like reducing list price, or not list price, the commission percentage, these people will go the extra mile for you if you can bring them additional deal flow. I think for realtors, that's the biggest bottleneck, right? It's just deal flow. Most realtors are terrible marketers.
Yeah. And he's got deals, he's moving deals, but like adding another 7, maybe if I add 20 more deals to his pipeline in a year, that's the way it should be. He should be giving me a big discount. And I know that's the conversation we're going to have.
Yep.
But I also look at like his stuff too. When I call him, it's like, hey, Chase, can you give me a comp on this property? Yeah, no problem. Give me 5 minutes. And he'll say, yep, this looks good. And if he's in the area, he'll just go and pop his drone out and take pictures, hop in it side by side and drive in it. So like he is a little bit of a unicorn.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't mind like paying him a little bit more, because he is different. Because then other markets, I can't even get guys to call me back.
Yeah.
So it's like,
this
guy's legit doing his job.
No, he's doing his job.
Yeah.
But doing your job doesn't get you 10% in my book.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'll have to reduce it. It's not a big deal. I will.
Yeah.
Just because the other ones have set the bar so low.
Yeah.
Right. You guys,
yeah.
That's the irony of realtors, right? It's like just if they pick up the phone, you think you have a unicorn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really, in layman's terms, they're just doing their job, which is so miraculous that it's like, oh my God, we should go above and beyond for them. Let's talk about any specific questions you guys have thus far about working with buyers.
I guess the one. Go ahead.
Good. No, if you got one, good.
Yeah, the one thing I always ask, like if I'm direct to a buyer, and they're always going to ask, hey, can I go see the property, this and that? Do you just say, yeah, go look at it? Is there ever pushback or anything like that with that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So it's
like, hey, we don't. Yeah.
Great. It's a great question. So when we think about what are we trying to do when we get a buyer lead, it's unless it's a really small property, which a lot of folks just buy these things sight unseen. The goal of those conversations is not to sell them on the land. The goal of our whole entire disposition process is to get them to the property. And so do it by any means. You want to go on a Tuesday night at midnight, you want to go, we've let people camp on the land before, like anything to get them on the land. They're like, I don't know what the statistics are, but like a buyer that's looks at it sight unseen versus visits is like almost a sure thing or very close to it that they're going to buy. In fact, we even build some of our stages for buyers around, have they committed to seeing the property in the next 30 days? Because if they do, to us, that's a very qualified lead, right? The leads that aren't going to go anywhere is like when they're playing coy about visiting the property. If they are, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
It's very rare. Like, there are counter examples, but it's very rare. So all of the conversations, text, email, phone calls, everything that we're trying to do is push them to visit the property. So that's why, like on some deals, we'll actually even build out. I don't know if we can find any on here currently, but we'll build out videos that like show directions to the property, which is really helpful. We'll give them obviously coordinates. We'll show them how to use the coordinates. Most buyers don't know how to use coordinates. If you've got a realtor too, I mean, obviously the realtor will just hopefully just drive them or show them to the property, which makes it a lot easier. You know, what we do with rural recreational lands has a lot of upsides to it. I think compared to other like sub niches in land, the biggest difficulty though is just people don't know how to get to these properties because, as the name implies, they're rural. They're really rural, right? And so like using coordinates and not having any street names to get to it can be really confusing for people. And so we do a lot of hand holding around that. Because that's like, to me, like that the amount of deals that we lose where someone drove out there and couldn't find the property is immense. And so all of our conversations, all of our dialogue are really trying to educate them on how to use coordinates, which is pretty much what we're going to use for every single property. We're going to kind of break down what the instructions are going to be like. We'll give them even like a turn by turn. Like we'll go on Google Maps, copy and paste the turn by turn directions. It's like, okay, where are you starting from? We'll get where they're starting from. We'll build out like literally step-by-step directions to them. We'll show them how to use coordinates. And then we just follow up super aggressive around that, right? So like when we go and look at buyer leads, so here's a I actually don't know how this person got in here. This is a seller, but it's kind of the same phenomenon, right? You see how this guy had 15 different tasks over the period that we were working this lead. And so we're always setting next steps. And kind of the thing that is the next step is getting the person to the property or following up to see when they're going to get to the property. Like all of our follow-ups are kind of catered around that. And we'll start to build kind of false urgency. It is real to some extent. But like, hey, we've got 8 people going to visit this weekend. When are you planning on getting out there? We'll allude to the fact that this property isn't going to be around very much longer without specifically saying that. Mm-hmm. And then, most times that's a true statement.
Mm-hmm. I got a question about, I don't know if this is probably coming from a wholesale mindset, but how often do you ever flip and double close 2 neighbors? And is that something you guys actually try to do? Or is that just because like the couple of them that we have, you can see the neighbor owns like multiple properties right around it. And it's like, why don't we just call them up and see if we can flip it to them quick? Yeah.
It's a great question. Let's pull up this deal and I'll kind of show you our logic behind it. So this is something that we started doing a lot more aggressively last year. Back in the day, it was kind of like ad hoc, like, we'll do it on some deals, we won't do it on some other deals. There was really no rhyme or reason to it. But I guess the rhyme or reason was like, are there a lot of neighbors? Is there a diversity of ownership? So if you see that like one neighbor owns all the properties there, it's like, well, we only got really one shot of maybe having a buyer. If there's like recent sales around the property, we'd be a little more motivated to send out neighbor letters. Now we just do that as part of our process. So like every deal that comes in, we're going to send out neighbor letters. We've done skip tracing and cold calling and cold texting. It's not part of our process, but it's definitely like case by case based off the setup. So like if I look at this property here and I see that someone just bought this deal here, that might be worth getting a hold of them, right?
Is that the seller lead? Seller lead from the nightly call?
This is, I don't know how the seller, I just changed the stage on this. This is a seller lead that somehow was tagged as a buyer.
Okay.
So this is actually a funny story. This is a deal that we lost $5 million on. This was a subdivided deal that we had at about $900K for this property and this property, okay? This poly lane looked like good access. We figure this looks like a county road. Well, we call it county just to verify this is not a county road. This is actually an easement that all these neighbors rely on. If we were going to sell this off into multiple chunks, each property would need to get like a variance or something like that from the county. This is also a gated road as well. There's like a gate code to get through to it. And so like the county was like, no, you can't do it. Then they said, yes, you can do it. Then it's like, actually, no, it looks like, no, you can't do it. We're just getting mixed reviews from everyone. So we're going back and forth on how to tackle this thing. Subdivided, this stuff is probably worth like 10 to 12K an acre. It's kind of like a no-brainer. It's like, we were contracted like 3,300 an acre. In total, it's about 300 acres or so. So we end up talking about giving it to our realtor and hooking them up. We end up just giving it to our realtor, right? He went and walked the property with the seller. He drafted up a bunch of drawings and schematics and how we're going to subdivide it. He had the contacts for us. Guy was awesome. So you know what, man? His name is James, right? James, we're just going to give you the lead. You've already worked with the seller. You're a good guy. He gets the lead. He goes in, lists it. He sells it for 1.5 mil. They sell it in like 2 weeks. One of the things that while we were doing due diligence on this property, one of the things he said is like, hey, my buddy owns this land over here and they're creating like this golf course subdivision over here. He's like, I wonder if he'd be a good buyer for this. And we were like, I don't know, maybe. We were thinking about trying to double close it as well. But we were just the seller was urgent. He didn't have a long timeline. He was a nice old man. I'm like, we should just do the right thing. Like, just give it to the realtor. So a father and son come and buy this property for 1.5. It says it's still for sale, but it's already sold. Literally 2 weeks after they buy it, this guy over here that owns the subdivision gives them an offer and says, hey, I'll pay whatever you guys bought for this property plus $5 million on top of it. So $6.5 million.
What the hell?
Yeah. And we were like 4 weeks cut out of that deal and we had it contracted at 900. Weird freaking story. I don't know if they end up taking the offer. I would imagine they had to. I mean, it'd be crazy not to. And it's just because this backs up to the subdivision that they're creating over here. Really nutty story, right? Wow. So on a property like this, right? Like, okay, so you see these little green icons, right? These are all recent sales. Mm-hmm. The reason we don't just start cold texting or cold calling everyone is there are issues around soliciting, right? So if you call or text someone and you're soliciting for them to buy something, there are rules against that. So you got to be careful. So if you're going to do it, I would recommend being a sniper, doing it on a very small scale. I get texts all the time where people just blast out, hey man, I got a deal in this area. You should buy it. And here's the price. I think that's probably not the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm. My thought was specifically if somebody owns more than one next to or something, then call them. But
so yeah, the more than one phenomenon is an interesting one. I also think the recent sales are interesting as well. So like if I was looking at this, and probably what we should have done, right, is like, okay, this guy owns a bunch of land here for this subdivision. They're building this out. Kind of like looking back, I'm like, dude, how stupid am I? This is so obvious. Like the subdivision's like mid development. Of course they would want this. Live and learn. We got this buyer here, and we've got this buyer here. These people are all probably pretty damn good buyers, right? So I might text and call these people. Now, these folks that bought these infill lots, these are recent sales, but none of these people are going to be good buyers for a $1.5 million, 300-acre property, right? So these people might get a call and a text if you want it to be very sniper-esque with it. You could go and look at the adjacent properties too. Let's go put an owner name on. And so you see like this FGG LLC. Okay, probably a pretty good person to call and text, right? So for the call and text, I'm usually looking at recent sales and like there's like a big clump of someone that owns a lot of land. In particular, love doing that with LLCs. Doesn't have to be, but those are usually pretty awesome. Sometimes you'll see like people that own a crap ton of land, but they just inherited it. They're not looking to buy more land, but it's still worth reaching out. And what we'll do for the neighbor letters is we'll typically just create a polygon and just have a pretty tight radius around this. But like, for example, we would weed this out. Like we want to get like kind properties in. I just don't think any of these people would make sense to market to. Yep. Like if we're drawing a polygon, it'd probably like come around here and like come up here, something like that. Most of our neighbor letters are like lowest, maybe 20 records, highest like 300 records. The weird thing is, for all the work we've been putting forth here, we don't really sell that many deals this way. So it's interesting. We definitely have sold deals this way. It's not a powerhouse for us, but it is pretty damn cheap, you know.
My thought is more quick turning of capital, you know, as opposed to like getting it with a realtor and getting all the pictures set up and doing all this stuff. Like perhaps we talk to this guy and he goes, oh yeah, I can do that for, you know, maybe it's 15% less than what we were going to sell it for, but it's like way quicker.
Quick.
Yeah. So I think that like, it's definitely going to be a deal by deal basis, but I would probably, if I had questions on a deal, I wasn't sure about a deal, I would contract it. And then I would start working the neighbors without letters, text and calls. Ideally calls have done way better for us than text. I think people are very skeptical when they get those texts. Calls have performed much better for us.
Yeah.
And then see if you could just double close that way. Right. Or at least validate that this is going to be a good deal. Maybe they don't end up.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of come at it as, hey, we're trying to gather some info for this property. If you're interested in it, we'd also be open to sell it.
So typically like the frame that we hold with these neighbor offers or what have you is like, hey, we're closing on this property. We just closed on this property. Frankly, we're going to go and list this with a realtor, but we would like to avoid that rigmarole, that hassle. We're going to list it at 180, but I figured you might be a good person that should at least get the first dibs on this property. We're offering it to the neighbors at about 150 or whatever the number is. And the reason that there's a discount there is it saves us the hassle and it gives you first dibs on it. Just wanted to make sure that you had access to getting the deal before it got listed, something like that. I like to speak to the fact too that they're not the only neighbor that we're reaching out to. Hey, we're reaching out to all the neighbors. Figured some of you guys might be a good fit for it. And then, bada bing, bada boom. So yeah, I know folks that do very well with this. I think they typically end up selling to like LLCs and stuff. Like I know a lot of folks that do this with infill lots. They'll go to a subdivision and find LLCs that are typically new home builders and sell it to them. And, you know, like trying to move a $1.5 million property to some consumer that owns another property over here is pretty hard.
Yeah.
I think. But it does happen. It does happen. Any questions on the neighbor letter thing?
Along the same vein, easements and stuff like that. So the one property we have, trying to get hold of the seller, trying to get hold of the person that's blocking us.
Yep.
It's a 30-foot strip. It's like one of the first properties we contracted.
Yeah.
So I actually just mailed the guy a letter 2 days ago. But I called a couple sellers, like we skip traced them. I called them. A couple other owners in the area. The one dude had the same name, but he's like, I only own property in Tennessee. I was like, oh, okay. You're interested in selling? And but no, he didn't own anything in North Carolina.
Okay.
So it's like, how do you typically go about like getting those easements? Is it something you say, hey, title, go figure this out? Or do you like sit there and like cold call people until you get what you need?
Yeah. We've had like really simple stuff with easements done with with title, like simple. Like, okay, this document just needs to get signed by this cousin who owns the adjacent property, like simple stuff, right? But like if we have to go and hunt someone down and get a stranger to give us an easement, even if title is willing to do it, it's not who you want doing it.
Okay.
So it's really the same play as like the neighbors, right? You're going to want to most likely triangulate with text, call, letter. I would always start with the cheapest form. So a text and a call. If you can't get a hold of them, I would mail all of them, all the ones that can give you access. It's going to be like, a handful of properties at most typically. You could, it really depends. That's why I like doing it with call. That's why I'm really a call just in general. I like doing it with, because there are times where someone doesn't give a hoot and they'll just give it to you for free. I think in a letter, you typically have to present it as like, we will pay you for an easement. I think some people will start to get dollar signs in their eye and will try to kind of beat you up on that. So for me, like, the most I would pay for an easement, it depends on the property, but typically it's going to be like a couple grand max. Because even if you can get an easement, there's no physical road cut in. It's still terrible access,
I know. I'd have to put the road in, but it's 30 feet from the property, like the county road, actual road to the property.
Yeah, 30 feet ain't bad.
Yeah, and it's totally worth it to buy for 21, sell for almost 80 grand.
Yeah.
So the spread is crazy, or I think it's 80 or 6. I forget the numbers, 80 or 70, whatever it is.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was a good spread.
It was a good spread. So called a couple people, can't find him. This guy that we called owns 600 acres surrounding this property.
Mm-hmm.
So we might just want to buy 17 acres in addition too. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was hoping he would do. And so I sent him a letter 2 days ago, basically saying, hey, we're looking to close on this property here, and we're buying it, whatever. The only downside is we do need an easement. It looks like you've already given easement to 2 of the other neighbors, so we were wondering what it would take to get an easement done as well. Yeah. Please give us a call, shoot us an email, whatever the case. So hopefully I hear back by tomorrow or something. But we haven't said that with the title yet, because I'm like, am I just going to waste $500 by sending it to title if I can't get this easement?
Yeah. Yeah, I would hold off in that case, especially if this title company or this closing attorney likes to charge you guys for things, even if they credit it to you. It's still kind of a hit to your cash flow right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would hold off. And like the biggest issue that we have with trying to get easements is exactly what you're going through, just crickets. Like most people are pretty open to it once you actually present it to them, but the crickets part is tough. And usually like the way I'll present that is like, hey, we're just looking to put together, that might be different for this property, but like, a 30 foot wide boundary easement on this section of the property. And I wouldn't really allude to the fact that you're going to try to sell this thing necessarily, but like, hey, we just bought this property. We're asking the neighbors if we can get a 30-foot boundary easement. Your property's only got 30 feet away from the property, be the perfect setup. And then, they might say, well, I'm not really interested in that. I might want to buy the property, which would be an awesome outcome. But most people are pretty negotiable on it. And so there's been cases where we got it for free. We just did that on a recent property, just totally for free. A couple $100 is pretty typical though. Mm-hmm. Like $500 is kind of where I start most of those.
Okay. Yeah. So I got a discount. We originally offered $29,000. I got it down to 21, so we could negotiate it. So
yeah, I mean, in theory, like based off of that, if you like the deal at 29, you could probably go up $8,000 and pay someone for the easement if you really wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who doesn't care.
It's like 500 for sure.
Yeah, it's like a 1 acre strip that isn't doing anything for him. It's just when they put the county road in, they cut his land in a section.
Yeah, it's just a weird little properties, and no one's going to use that property. So yeah, with something like that, it's just the hard part is just getting a hold of him. The tough thing too is that like to get a hold of that person, you probably will at a certain point. It just might take freaking forever. And again, I know folks like this is their whole business to some extent, and so like they'll start trying to track down like relatives of that person, start calling them, and play like a game of phone tag and try to get a hold of them. And I've seen really, really crazy deals come to fruition just by putting in the extra work there. I will say though, it's like that's tough to do just on one-off deals here and there. It's like if you guys are going to go through that hassle, it's almost something I'd want to build a process around to have that in the wheelhouse in the future.
Yeah.
I've often thought about like just trying to go and build out mailers of just landlocked properties. I think that's such an interesting strategy. Like, look at this big landlocked lot right here. Like
we're just ones in trusts.
Yeah, just ones in trust. Yeah.
There's 1,000 different niches inside niches
There
inside
are.
niches.
It's pretty
You know,
too many niches.
we
Yeah.
talked to Ashley and her team, and we told them like kind of the stuff, the airship issues we're dealing with. And, you know, we said we got a huge discount on this property. And her husband, Josh, was like, well, I'll go and try to find all the heirs. If, you know, whatever works out, then it's a business I would do.
They're out in Utah. There's a huge like genealogy like home out here. So, crazy.
Yeah. He's going to try to search down the heirs for us. And if he does, hey, he'll get a fee
Yep.
for doing it.
Yep.
And that could be something that they could just add to their TC business. Hey, need airship, need to help find heirs. We could do that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
It's a very interesting strategy. I'm really curious to see how that deal plays out. I think that's an easy enough deal to get access for, just because all the lots are connected are kind of like junk lots, and these people own a bunch of land, and those are obviously not the creme de la creme properties they have. The only tough thing with that is like you only have like 3 shots, like I think it's like 2 properties that could do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're kind of SOL if you can't get a hold of them.
Technically 3, but then because he's got a deeded easement for his one property, can I utilize the same easement he has, or would I also have to get that deeded to me as well?
Wait, who's got a deeded easement?
So the guy next to me has a deeded easement from the guy we're trying to
get
get
to. Deeded to their property. Yeah.
So I'd have to get okay. So yeah, it's 2.
Yeah. All right. There's a couple questions here that I'm going to go through. So Bugsy says, for smaller deals, I get what I pay as a down payment. If I pay $10K for the land, that's my down payment requirement. Yeah, Bugsy, I think that that's definitely nice when it happens. But if I look at what's the strategy with owner financing, it's to hopefully sell the property quickly. And I think asking for what you paid for it, just we can't always control that, right? So I like to be competitive with what the market is telling me. I'm not going to let Sumner influence my pricing. I'm going to say, what's the market telling me? So if there's no one offering owner financing in that market, okay, I might be able to ask for what I put into it, right? There are some deals where it doesn't make sense though. Like if I have a deal that I'm selling at 300 and I bought for 100, it's a big ass down payment to ask for. Maybe I get it, but maybe not, right? And now that we can sell notes, it's like it doesn't really matter what you get as long as you can sell the total note. So for me, I think it's just different rules of thumb, right? Like our internal metric is we want to get our full basis back in the property in 12 months or less. We typically are well underneath that. So let's say I have a deal that we paid, 10 grand for, and I get a $4,000 down payment, but I get $500 a month. It's like, cool, I'll get my basis back in a year. I'm totally happy to do that. But it's also just kind of like depends on how much capital you have, how you're funding deals, what your requirements are. But I think that like the vast majority of our deals for owner financing, we're just not able to get the basis back as a down payment. If we do get it, it starts to mirror the timeline that it would take just to sell the thing on cash terms. But he says also for realtors, they usually pay 10% for smaller deals, but it gets bigger, 4 to 6%, depends on I think that's true. I think smaller deals, 10% is definitely fair. If you're selling a $10,000 property, it's like, okay, come on, it's got to be worth their while. On the smaller deals, sometimes what we've done too is just a flat commission. David says, how are you gaining access to the landowner if the property is listed? Are you asking their permission to speak with the owners, or are you just skip tracing going straight to them? Yeah, just skip tracing going straight to them, right? So if we want to go find a neighbor, we're just going to go skip trace them. If the property is listed, you could always go and just talk to the realtor and get in touch with them that way. The example that I showed, that property wasn't listed when we contacted them, right? So our realtor walked the property for us to underwrite it as a subdivide, and then we ended up giving the listing to him. Most of the deals we get, like 99%, are all off market. It's very rare that we do deals that are on market. It happens. Typically, though, if you go and skip trace the owner and they have an agent, but typically going to say, hey, talk to my agent, right? So you might be better off not wasting your time just going straight to the agent. Ari says, are you familiar with having the property registered for an address with the county? I had a realtor do it for me. Told me it took one phone call. I doubt he paid anything. So I think, Ari, you're asking about registering it for a situs address. I think that's probably county specific, but I think to have a situs address, you need a mailbox, right? So I could be wrong on that, but I've never gone and requested or gotten a situs address. So yeah, not positive on that. And rural Oklahoma might be a little easier than some other places. Again, probably 99% of the deals we do don't actually have a situs address. And that's why we have to use coordinates. You guys have any parting words or additional questions around what's going to happen as you guys start getting buyer leads? I want to make sure that, because this is going to end today, I want to make sure when those leads come in, you guys have got a sound system for it.
As far as like a contract to go and stuff like that, what kind of contract do you use when it comes to actually getting those leads under contract? Just a regular purchase and sale, same thing you used for mailing?
No, yeah, it's a good question. Not the same thing that we use for mailing. What we use for mailing is like so sided for us as the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really what I would want to use with someone coming in that wants to buy it from us. So actually, there's a lot of, I'll share my screen here. There's a lot of kind of like they're kind of like cookie cutter. Hey, Jay just joined the 90-day program. What's up, man? Excited.
What's up?
Way to go. Way to go. I think we've had a handful of folks join since we've been on the call. So yeah, one of the things that I recommend using, you can use deeds.com. Obviously, like purchase agreements look a little bit different in every state. So you can use a deeds.com and you can get templates from here, which is pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. We use something called lawdepot.com, and they'll draft up boilerplate templates for you. So we'll do like purchase agreements on here. We'll do contracts for deed, promissory notes, and we just use those on the dispo side. We don't use these on the acquisition side unless it's like a complex subdivide. We're going to put in special terms. Then yeah, we'll use this to draft one on the acquisition side. So this is a cool platform because it literally like takes you through like a cookie cutter prompt where it's like, what's the seller's name? You plug it in. What's your name? What's the LLC information? It's like, it's really hard to mess these up. And then at the end, you can edit it. So if you're like, hey, I want to remove this term, like there's no earnest money on this deal. Boom, you can go remove that term, right? And that's pretty cool. So Law Depot or deeds.com, you could have a lawyer draft you up like boilerplate contracts for almost every state for acquisitions, dispositions, and just use that. It's up to you. But I like these cookie cutter services. They're like $20 a month or something like that. Super affordable. Do you guys have more questions? Because if you do, I'm going to take a quick timeout and use the restroom.
Do your thing. Go do that. We'll riff for a bit.
Entertain the group.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, Rob, going from here, like what's our plan? What's going to be our execution plan for the next 90 days? You know, we can't hear you. You muted out. Rob, muted.
Got it.
There you go.
I'm starting to lag over here. I'm like, man, we're going to end just like we've done every one of these where my computer is just crapping out on me in the middle of it. But I think you know, working these deals to completion is like very top priority so we can get some cash in the door, right? And then keep the mail flowing and figuring out what our cadence needs to be, whether we do that route. And then I think we've also kind of kicked around if we're going to keep doing 5 to, you know, everything acre size. We've kind of been thinking maybe our time's better spent trying to do the bigger deals and trying to utilize some of our connections and everything. So
I also think too, maybe if we're doing like the buy for 60, sell for 120s, if we come up with like an easement issue, it's easy to say like, hey, we're going to drop this 10 grand. Whereas like if it's a buy for 12 and sell for 30, to drop it to 6 grand, it's like, oh, I just lost 50% of the money.
Yeah.
But
you've already felt that with a couple of the sellers, right?
Yeah. So talking to the sellers, when I try to convince them to like come down a little bit, they're very upset. Yeah. So I'm wondering if we just go up market and just stay in that, you know, our average acquisition is like 50 grand. That gives us like a really good buffer to kind of like, if we have an easement issue, an access issue, we could kind of come down 10 grand. That's enough of a buffer to really spend the money and the time to solve all those problems. So,
and I think the other end that we were talking to is like potentially doing the minor subdivides.
Right. Having 40 acres kind of and do minor subdivides, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe honing in on what our actual vision is for the company and what we actually want to target. Mm-hmm. And then,
let's talk about that for a second. I think one thing too, I mentioned this on our LIA coaching call yesterday, the Monday Q&A call. So we had our meetup last Friday. One of the guys that came to the meetup, this guy named Femi, is a really cool example of someone who's just like done the obvious. And like, I think like a lot of times when we think about how to grow our business, I think we always think new and novel, but sometimes just like raising the intensity dial does the trick. Just more of the same, but just more intense, right? And so they're doing about 25,000 mailers a month. They're scaling up to 50,000 mailers a month. They don't do texting, they don't do cold calling, they don't do none of that, right? The way that they grew their business was sending more mail and just going after bigger deals. So we're like, dude, what's your average gross per deal you do? And for the year, it's been $80K per deal. I'm like, damn, how'd you get that? They're like, we just don't market to properties that are $50,000 and less. It's like,
yeah,
shit, that makes sense. And we just send way more mail than most people, right? So let's talk about what's the vision? Like, where do you guys want to be in 12, 24 months? Let's talk about the roadmap that we're going to take to get there.
I mean, I would also ask too, you've worked with us for 9 weeks now. Like, what do you kind of see for us? Is there maybe from all of our conversations, is there a route you think we should be going down?
So that's a good question.
Flip the script.
So like, yeah, right. Seriously. You guys have definitely done a good job while we haven't deployed it in this 90-day challenge. You guys have done a good job raising capital, right? So I think you guys kind of have an advantage in that sense in terms of being able to tap into more money at better terms than most people could. I think that allows you to have the luxury of going after bigger deals. You guys also have 2 mouths to feed though, right? At the same time. So that's kind of an interesting phenomenon that not a lot of people are going to be in that same position. So like that lifestyle business that does 30K a month probably isn't that appealing to you guys, right?
No.
So we got to figure out, okay, well, if a big business is kind of the requirement, right? This isn't something you guys are doing on the side. It's something that you guys want to do full time. There's also something that's got to support both of you guys' lifestyles. Then we got presented with this fork in the road, which says, well, what kind of business do we want to build? Do you want to have what I call a project-based business, or do you want a transactional business? Transactional business might be, hey, we do 15, 20, 30 deals a month. Could be double closes, could be assignments, could be quick flips, could be on the financing. Or do you want a project-based business where it's like, hey, we do 5 deals a year. We do entitlements, subdivides, some kind of value add. Which is more appealing to you guys? Do you guys like to play the game of working on one thing for a long time? Or do you guys want that dopamine hit of deals? What resonates?
I'd much rather do like 2 deals a month than net me 150 grand.
Okay.
Me too. And I mean, like, I think initially we need money in the front door to keep things rolling, but I feel the same way. I would rather do bigger things that, you know, yield more, but shorter, or smaller amount of deals.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. Okay, so more project-based, bigger deals. Let's talk about the requirement that's what we're going to need to do to get there. So one, you guys are going to need to create some kind of real threshold in your business in terms of like, we don't market to things that are less than whatever that price is. So like, it's so interesting how like just eliminating things is is an easy lever to scale, right? So like you could get fancy and create some automations and start delegating, or you could just say, hey, we just don't do small things. And you literally can't convince us to do it. You know, I'm a victim of this, but it's like, well, we got this lead that we can make 20 grand on. I mean, we might as well do it. And I've kind of gone more the volume route than like a project-based route. So it's also just different strokes for folks. That threshold is going to play into the markets that you decide to participate in. It's also going to play into the deals that you say yes or no to, right? So we got to set that line in the sand, and we got to figure out, okay, there's a lot of different value add strategies. What's the one that you guys want to master first? I don't recommend trying to do a bunch of different things. I recommend getting really good at one value add strategy. So like rezoning, entitlement kind of things, fixing access, fixing title, quiet title, subdivides. What's the thing that you feel like, I know it's hard to know because you've yet to do any of those, but where's the area you guys want to sink your teeth in? Because you guys are going to have to start mastering that if a project-based business is what you want to do.
Are you thinking minor subdivides?
Yeah, because my eventual goal is to get to major subdivisions. That's like really like the pipeline end goal is to do major subdivisions and actually utilize both fields of my stuff and actually do development, like full development, like buy the land, do the full development, everything soup to nuts.
Yep.
But it's like stages, right? Let's figure out how to do the buy the land, then get the actual minor subdivision done, then do the majors.
Yep.
You know, so I feel like subdivision is the route that kind of fits our model best.
Okay.
You know?
So the framework for that, pretty simple. And I'm not the subdivide expert, but I'll tell you like how I think about it. So obviously it all starts with your market selection, right? So you guys need to go after markets where big acreage is available, where there's still demand for smaller acreage though. So it's like gotta be like that dichotomy, right? There are big properties here, but people still want smaller properties. You look at some markets where it's like anything over 200 acres, there's 40 properties in the whole county. So we got to have big inventory. And we also have to say that people don't just want 400 acres. People are also buying the 5s, the 10s, the 20s. If you go look at Oklahoma at some of these deals, it's like the 10s people are buying. Ain't no one buying 5 acres or 2.5 acres. So subdividing a 10 acre into 2.5 acre increments just doesn't make sense. So if 10s are the sweet spot, well, we need to be at, I'll call it 40 acres plus for all those subdivided deals we're going after. The next thing that we need to go look at is like before we do any marketing to those areas, we got to make sure that we understand the subdivided process and what you can and can't do, because that's going to back into the math of how you create your offers. No longer you're going to go build out offers and say, I'm going to offer 55% of retail. It's like, that might be actually closer to 75% of retail, but how you get there is by underwriting what the outcome is going to be, not what the deal's worth. But in order to do that, you need to know the steps involved and you need to know what you can and can't do in that county. I think the best advice that I could give about subdividing and really value add anywhere is like it's a game of vertical integration. So it's like building contacts in the county, making sure the county actually allows you to do what you want to do. First off, creating the contacts in the county, getting the surveyors, getting the realtors, like having all of that there will move the needle more so than being in a market that has a little more demand. So it's like this really turns like your marketing is going to be very much a quantity game, but your market selection is going to be very much a quality game, and just really having a few. The way you market's also going to be a lot different. So like you might have a list of 5,000 properties that meet your criteria and fill in the blank county. Most people would mail that once and then move on. Or if they're more seasoned, they're a LIA member, they mail it once a quarter. That's it. To get subdivided inventory, you're going to have a pretty small list of potential candidates, and you need to work the crap out of it from every angle. So it's like it actually kind of removes a lot of the market selection for you guys. Like when I started getting into subdivides, what I said is I'm going to build out my dream list. I build out a folder inside Google Drive. I called it my dream list, my dream counties, and then my dream little ranges within those counties. I just said, hey, here's all the data we were going to have, 20,000 records or whatever. And we just work it, opposed to always trying to find new counties. The cool thing is there are some states where like the rules are pretty much the same across the state, right? So it depends on where you're working.
So is that something you made like a side arm to your business? Where it's like, that this is going to be a long-term, I'm going to have to work the hell out of this. But if I get one deal, it's, a year's worth of all these smaller ones.
Yeah. It's a very long-term, very difficult business model, right?
Okay.
It's hard for newer investors because you might have to spend multiple 5 figures to get a signed contract. Sales cycles are really long. The project is really long. There's lots of ups and downs, but that deal could make you the equivalent of selling 50 properties. Okay. But it's a really emotional roller coaster to get there, and you have to shell out a ton of cash. So like your like payback period on that money is much slower. Right. If I go do 50 flips, I might get my marketing cost back in 2 or 3 deals. That might only take me 3 months. To get my money out of marketing for that deal for a subdivide, it could take me a year and a half.
So then maybe that's something that we should build into by turning capital. Is that kind of the thought?
It's your guys' call. Right. It really just depends on what you need the business to do for you, the goals that you have for the business, and how much liquidity you have in the business. And again, like, my sample size is small. So like you guys could go drop your first round of mailers and get a subdivided right off the rip. And there's subdivided inventory that's listed online too. You can find on-market subdivided inventory. I know plenty of people that do that.
Yeah. I actually just talked to a realtor about a property in Oklahoma, and he's like, we got one, the guy wants to sell, it's 524 acres in Oklahoma. He wants 4,000 an acre, and he's like, we can't move it. Nobody wants to buy it at that. I was like, well, in that area, a 20 acres selling for 6,000 an acre.
Yeah,
so maybe there's a play there, right? Just it's 2,000 an acre.
The other thing too is if you could implement some kind of creative finance contract for that gives us a couple years, 2-3 years lead time to work it, then maybe something like that can get done. But
yeah.
You guys want to see something cool?
Yes, of course.
So we just got an offer like a minute ago. It's an owner finance offer. So my team just sent this in our offers channel. So the property is this one right here. It's 4.98 acre property. So the offer is $25,000 down, $500 earnest, 12% interest for 7 years, and our acquisition cost is $23,000. So a good example of getting your basis back right off the rip.
Yeah.
Pretty cool deal. So like for me, I just know my personality and what I want to do. I want to go do 200, 300 of these deals every year. That's what I want to do. I just enjoy that business model so much more. Will I still do subdivides? Yes. But like going through this process, I've just realized that that's just not the kind of business I want to run. I don't like having this emotional turmoil of spending all this money to get a contract where it's up and down. It's like, it's off, it's on. You have all these third parties you have to rely on. It's like this crazy buildup, this like 3-month to 12-month buildup, this to the crescendo of getting it listed. And you're so terrified because you've got so much money in the deal that if it doesn't sell immediately, bad things are going to happen. I personally just don't like it. So, some of that comes from experience, but I think you really got to like be introspective and kind of figure out what business do you want. And do you have to start like doing just that immediately? No, you guys could still like the truth is marketing for subdivided inventory, you're going to get deals that are double closes. You're going to get deals that are standard cash flips. So like, they're not all going to be just an exclusive subdivide. So like, there will be other alternatives that come across your plate, but I think it's a really good question to start asking. Before we start like really trying to put a bow on what you guys want to do in terms of the strategy, let's talk about what do you guys want the business to do for you? Like, why are you guys even getting involved in land?
I'd say my main goal is time freedom and to do more of like location freedom. I don't have to stay in one spot. That's kind of like my main thing.
I feel the same way, and I want to get out of my W-2, but like personally, my wife retires from the Air Force in 2 years. Like, I want to be able to RV and have a business that I can work from the road. Okay. So, and then longer term, I think of, and I think we've talked about this too, Dennis, is we want money to be able to put into creative finance deals into like rental portfolios as well. Yes. Okay. Like, we want to flip this cash and put it into properties and then build up a rental portfolio.
Okay. Let's talk about the next 12 months. What would be like success for you guys in terms of what the business can deliver?
I'd say $200K profit per person net. That'd be ideal. Okay. So it's $400K total business profit.
Yeah.
So I think if we did, and that means I want to keep at least 50% of what we make into the business. So we'd have to make $800K net in 12 months.
I like that.
And I think that's totally feasible. I really don't think it's that hard. It's just, let's work backwards from there. Basically, if it's 800,000 and if we want to only make, 50,000 per deal divided by 50,000, we have to make 16 deals. And if our KPIs are, we get one deal for every 2,000 mailers, times 2,000.
Not on deals that make you 50 though. So
okay, so that's the thing. That's the rub. Yeah. Is like we got to figure out what that KPI is.
So let's say 16 deals, 50,000 mailers. I would say you guys are probably going to be closer to like 8,000 to 10,000 mailers per deal.
So 16 times. So let's call it 8,000 mailers. So we need to send out 128,000 mailers divided by 12. That's only 10,000 mailers a month.
Yeah.
Just to make, so if we could send out 20,000 mailers a month with the ones that fall through the cracks, we should be able to hit 16 deals.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that like you guys, definitely need to define what direction you want to go in terms of project-based versus transactional. If I had to interpret just what I'm feeling, maybe not hearing, I don't think you guys are specifically saying it, and maybe throwing in my own kind of judgment, just going through it myself, I think you guys would be better suited to follow a business like this. You guys go after high ticket deals that net you 50K or whatever it is per deal, which by virtue of that, you're following a rural recreational business model. Typically more expensive rural recreational deals are also going to be bigger.
Yeah.
Right? So by virtue of that, you will get exposure to some subdivided inventory. I don't know if that's going to be like the full thrust of your business though, but there'll be something that you guys are, you're keeping your gears turning, your eyes open for it. So I think like it's going to be more transactional and project based. I think, even though 16 deals doesn't sound like, necessarily transactional, it's not a value add strategy. You're not going to work on a singular deal for months to get it put together. It's going to be much quicker than that. You can look at transactional both in terms of the dispositions, but really more the acquisition, right? Like someone's going to come in from a letter, and within 4 weeks you should have a contract from them, either yes or no. It's going to be pretty much like pretty black and white. With these project-based deals, it's not transactional in the sense that you might fly in, meet these people in person, walk the property with them, send them gifts, spend 6 months with them to get the deal ready. But yeah, I think for you guys, I mean, like really the next steps to achieve that, like you said, is probably getting up to that 20,000 mailers a month, somewhere in that range. And you guys have to understand, if you are solo, you might be able to get similar numbers at 10K or whatever it may be. And so you'll hear a lot of folks in the group that are solo, that are doing 10, 15K deals or 15K, 10 to 15,000 mailers a month. You guys pretty much have to 2X that.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. Your volume is going to be higher than almost anyone in the group because you do have a partnership. So I think kind of like the next steps for you guys, if we wanted to set them, is going to be to set requirements, or write this down. Set requirements on markets and deals. It sounds like that's going to be whatever. Deals that are 100K plus in list price, 50K plus in list price, whatever that may be. So set requirements. The next thing is going to be scale marketing to 20K mailers a month. It's going to be hire generalist VA, call it GVA, and acquisition manager. Those are kind of like the next 3 steps that I think need to get tackled in less than a quarter. Like that needs to happen, I think, relatively soon. If you guys want to hit that 12-month milestone, 12 months from now, call it, right?
Okay.
So that's where I put my focus. The setting requirements, you guys could literally do that in a day and just stick to it. It's only valuable if you adhere to it. Scale to 20,000 mailers a month. Could you guys move to 20,000 mailers a month next month? Now that you guys have got the market selection tool, you think that's possible?
I think it is, but I think what the rub with that too is I want to be more selective on the properties that we're mailing to. So is it worth kind of like picking and choosing all the properties, like going through on Data Tree and scraping it out? Or do you just mail it anyways, just let the stuff come and then...
For subdivided inventory, we do. For what you're doing, you could. You don't have to. That would be a role you'd have to hire.
Okay.
Probably part-time or so. Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't. That'll probably take your data sets down by like 30%. So like you'll need to source like 25,000 mailers a month data points, and you'll end up with like 20. So we're going to need to add like a 30% buffer on that. That will probably take, let's do the math on that. That's going to take a VA. So it's about, call it 20 times 3.5. It'll take about 70 hours a month to do that.
Okay.
So 70 hours, and let's say they're at $5 an hour. It's going to be $350 a month. It's not much.
Just think about your cost of mail of not sending 5,000 times call 0.6. You're saving $3,000? Yep. Like it's right there. It's like, okay, spend 300 to save 3,000. I mean, why not?
It's beyond just the savings too of the mailer. It's like you're reducing the time of wasting talking to crappy leads and like your team's time, your time. And so it's actually the savings probably even bigger than just the mail cost.
Yeah.
But so if that's the case though, you guys need to get that role hired like immediately or very close to it, because that's going to be kind of the next step to scaling your marketing. I think there's wisdom in that for sure. I think the requirements for them is going to be no landlocked stuff, which will limit you guys from getting any of those weird easement deals if you want them.
I don't want them right
no floodplain lots, no weird shaped lots, and then you can just remove it like that.
Okay.
And then you guys are probably pretty quickly, like the next 30 to 45 days, going to need a generalist VA just to help with the minutia in between. Say we lost Rob. Go figure.
Hey, he says let him back in.
So this device is not connected.
Nice. I love Rob. The first thing we're going to do is buy Rob a new computer. That's step one.
Yeah.
Restarting them. I love that. So
from the call. Yeah, Rob is, dude. Oh my god, I don't even know how you guys have gotten this far with his computer issues.
It doesn't happen when it's only like on like the Zooms like here.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like selective, but we'll do Zooms like crazy and no issues. It's so frustrating.
So yeah, generalist VA, I would use something like onlinejobs.ph to source someone overseas. Then acquisition manager, we'll have to cross that bridge when you guys get there inside the LIA program.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys are doing volume 20K mailers a month, you could probably support bringing on someone here in the US, especially since you're going after such higher price properties. Could be a commission only role as well, something that I've done and many others in the group have done.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no hit to your guys' cash flow. It could be kind of an interesting strategy.
Yeah, that's kind of a thought too. Is like, I know I could source an acquisitions manager, no problem.
Yep.
It's just, I got to make sure we have enough deal flow to keep them going. That's my main thing.
Yeah.
So when you're mailing this, how often are you remailing for subdivide or for this type of property class? Are you remailing multiple times? Or are you
subdivides?
No, or just like this class of property right above?
Yeah, so like these more transactional deals, it's going to be the same quarterly, right? Like, I mean transactional in terms of, I don't care if the offer is $100,000 or $50,000. The person wants to sell. There's not much going back and forth. Your due diligence is really simple. They don't have multiple decision makers typically. You make them an offer, you close in a couple of weeks. The subdivide stuff, there's a lot more trust that's required. The sales cycles are way longer. Typically, my approach on that is more like omnipresent. So it's like mail them, text them, cold call them, and then kind of keep them in that loop over and over and over again.
Sure.
I still have yet to figure out what the correct cadence is on that, though. It's been it's difficult stuff, and it's still new to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to like I'm trying to figure out what the right thing is. So like if I'm just thinking about this, like if I'm mailing if I'm pulling 25,000 pieces of data a month,
yeah,
and I'm mailing every quarter, I'm basically going to have 100,000 pieces of data that I'll hit for a year, and then almost like in the next year, then I kind of reset, get new data. Is that kind of like how you do it, or would you just?
For remarketing, we'll typically refresh our data annually. I mean, it depends. Like if it's a really hot market and like you can go look on data tree, the count's changing a ton, and there's a bunch of new sales, you might want to refresh that a little more frequently. But yeah, typically a year for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the old data, do you continue to mail it, or do you kind of just like?
No, yeah. So old data, like I was saying, we'll mail that just for 12 months, and I'll typically just go and re-download it and refresh it because a lot's changed, right? So like I could be mailing people that don't own the property anymore, who inherited it, whatever it may be. So usually a year.
Okay, so usually a year. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because at that point, then you're talking about 100,000 points of data. You pull that from data tree and price it from data tree. You're pretty good. I mean, times point. It's really not that much.
Yeah, we're looking into a platform called Land Vision. It's a $20,000 a year subscription, but you can get multiple people to share that cost, and everyone gets unlimited data, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
So you start chewing through data. It's a pretty cool option. It's actually much more comprehensive than data tree too. Deeper due diligence stuff. They got crazy zoning stuff. It's like big new home builders will use that.
Really?
So like a Lennar Homes or something like that. So it's $20K a year, but I think you can get unlimited people on it. I don't know if that's actually true, but I think you can get like a ridiculous amount of people on it and just kind of break it down that way.
Maybe we could just do that as like a LIA Group Coaching thing.
Yeah, I think we're going to share it in the group and see if I already know there's probably like 10 folks or so that definitely want to take us up on it.
Yeah, I mean, we're down. Yeah. If I could get 100,000 points of data every year.
Yeah. I mean, you'll quickly scale beyond 100,000 points of data too. Like
easily. Yeah.
That's still on the smaller side. Well, any parting words you guys want to share with folks that are just getting started or just folks that are just ending the 90-day challenge, folks that are here on the live stream? What's your guys' recommendation?
I'm buying a new computer with the first deal.
Yeah,
I might buy two.
Man. Jeez Louise, dude.
I will say one of the biggest things is to save yourself some time, like get the marketing tool. Yeah, the marketing tool is the landinvestor.co/market. Yeah. That marketing tool can save you so many freaking hours. It's ridiculous.
It's funny, dude. So when we first started kind of breaking down the math on it, we're like, well, I think we could probably save like 5 hours a week, 20 hours a month. every person we've talked to is like, dude, it's like closer to 20 hours a week if you're a new land investor.
No, if you're new, because all you're doing when you're new is looking for markets to go into.
Yeah.
This eliminates that.
Yeah.
Like 100% eliminates it. I mean, you still have to trust but verify. Like you go in, you do your thing, and you're still going to look at it because you want to look and see if it's homogenous, all that stuff. But it cycles all the data down. Like that would have saved us so much freaking time. And what that time could have been spent on is pricing out more data sets and mailing more stuff. And we would have had even better KPIs.
Yeah.
Right. But instead, this tool wasn't available when we started the 90-day.
Yeah.
So definitely doing that. And honestly, like the best part about this too is just like being in the group coaching program and just like hanging out with everybody, being able to talk to people, like hopping on the phone with Femi the other day and talking to a guy that's doing $1 million a year in land, and just him telling me, yeah, I just do less deals. I just do 12 deals a year instead of doing like 40 deals, whatever. And I'm making this. It's like just being able to rib on that and talk to people like that inside the group coaching program just helps so much.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I was going to hit on that too, because we've had so many things pop up where we're just like, go to the group, ask it in Discord, get some answers, flush out ideas, flush out our mailer design. There's so many things that we've utilized the group for. It's been really awesome. And I mean, if you need a taster to like get in the free Discord and so you realize, oh crap, everything's happening behind the scenes, like get in there, get in there and at least get your feet wet with it. But, and then the other thing I would say is just, keep it simple. Follow what is taught, and don't try to recreate the wheel. Find the simplest, direction towards success.
Yeah.
Surrender to the system.
Yeah, man. You look at all the folks, like, Femi's a good example. Kind of going back to what I said earlier, all the folks that are doing this to a big degree, it's like they're typically just doing more of the basics at a higher intensity. And it's rarely like, oh, he's doing freaking cold calling, ringless voicemail texting, direct mail, sends carrier pigeons. It's like, no, he just sends a crap ton of mail and is very clear on what kinds of properties he wants to buy or whatever it may be. I'm always surprised by that. This business is so simple. It's not easy, but it's incredibly simple. I think for anyone here that's watching at home, beyond just the strategy that you guys are going to learn inside the 90-day Zero to Hero program, I think really hopefully the takeaway is like that 4-minute mile syndrome, right? I don't mean this to disparage Rob and Dennis, but you guys are normal dudes. And you see them go from literally not doing any land deals to $250K plus in pipeline profit in 12 weeks with 10 grand. Again, have you guys exhausted that full $10,000 budget? What's been the total spend?
So now with the title stuff, we did exhaust it.
Okay.
So if we hadn't had that, we would have sent out another, bulk of mailers. That doesn't mean we're not going to stop mailing. We're still going to mail. It's just, that 10 grand got exhausted from that.
Yeah.
And those mailers haven't even finished hitting yet.
Yeah.
So like we still got like probably another month's worth of, trickling in leads as well, probably.
Yeah.
Well, cool, guys. I appreciate everyone sticking around with us. As you guys may or may not know, this is week 12. The actual Bonafide program goes live July 28th. It's a 12-week program, so it goes through kind of all the 12 weeks, kind of over the shoulder, watching us build Rob and Dennis's business.
And we're newbies. We hammered the questions, right? We hammered you.
I asked everything. We made ourselves very vulnerable, very stupid, asked all the questions.
If you are on the edge of whether or not you're going to buy into this, just know that, if you're brand new, we asked every stupid question to save you time.
Yep.
Because
this is the most full of them. Yeah, most affordable offering we have, right? Like the LIA Group Coaching Program is a 5-figure program. That doesn't make sense for everyone who's just getting started. If you've never done a deal, that could be a big undertaking. For $800, you can go get involved in the Zero to Hero program, go do a few deals, and then join the LIA program, right? Kind of our thought process, and frankly, it's a bit selfish, was like, there's so much bad education out there. We get people that call us every week that are like, hey, I went through Joe Schmo's program and I've lost money, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I bought 12 deals and none of them have sold. Like, okay, well, the group coaching program is probably not the right program for you, right? That's really going to harp on how do you actually go and build a business? How do you scale from doing some deals to a lot of deals, 6-7 figures, whatever it may be. the way I look at it is like this program is going to show you the path of least resistance to go doing your first half dozen or dozen deals. And then the hope is from our side is that you go through that, you learn how to do deals, you become a deal maker, and then we show you how to become a land entrepreneur in the LIA program, right? That's kind of the roadmap. Anyways, guys, thanks for the time, y'all. We'll see you here when we see you, I guess.
Thanks so much.
See you on Wednesday.